All right, good evening, everyone. Tonight is June 17th, 2024. It's a meeting of the Groton Board of Education. It's a special meeting, and it's being held at Central Office. First order on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And could everybody stand? And I'll ask Bruce Jones to lead us with the pledge, if he doesn't mind. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. In attendance tonight, we have Mr. Piazza. We have Ray, what's Ray's last name? Engel. Ian Thomas, Dean Antipaz, Adrian Johnson. We have the superintendent. We have Dr. Ackerman and Mike Whitney. The next order is recognition and participation of visitors and delegation, and we have people from the Groton Open Space here to give us a presentation. Thank you for coming. We're looking forward to your presentation. I looked at your handout, and whatever you do for the Groton Public School children, we're glad. Thank you.
Back here, too. Oh,
Back here. Okay.
I just got a cold.
Okay. Are you all doing a presentation?
They
or
will
you?
be.
Oh,
Ben Moon is going to lead the direction for that when it comes to that time, underneath my report.
oh, okay, because it's here. Okay.
But we wanted to recognize them. They actually assisted us with field trips this year. I know that we were able to, he's cluing me into talking to him, but it was wonderful that every school participated. We even had weekend trips. Ben Moon, who is really our STEM coordinator, K-5, has really been inspirational in getting schools on board with the farm to school work that started a while ago, and then to really have families and students participate on weekends has been just a wonderful addition. And also for part of the school day, also taking those hikes. So he'll tell you more about that. And also Dr. Kennedy has been really part of this inner side team, and then of course with our partners, we really so appreciate it. And so you'll be presenting though during my report.
And I just want to, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but everybody got the Empora in their packet. This is, if you haven't seen this, this is beautiful. What those Fitch High School students do, it's just outstanding. I mean, I could show you some of the works in here. It's this, you got to get it. Is it, go ahead.
Fitch High School with GOSA started recycling in the town of Groton. They were so successful that it ended up that the town took it over because we had collected so much glass and so much paper that it then had to go to the town of Groton to take it over, and you may not know that we started it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm the founder, Cindy Van Zandt.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Did you want to say something?
Can you come to the microphone?
Expect when we came tonight, would you like me to say a few words? Just to-
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Come up to the
Come up to the
microphone.
microphone here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dan O'Connell. I'm president of Groton Open Space Association. We're so happy to be working with the Groton Public Schools and a whole bunch of really great people to give our kids a chance to get outdoors. We have people from our board and people that have helped us out on the trails, leading some of the hikes here with us tonight. My wife Lynn and Robin Thomas were really keys on our side, on GOSA's side, to get this all put together, along with that guy in the corner and Ben. Yeah, the two guys. So very, very interesting beginnings. They just have Clint happened to stop by one day when we were doing a work party, and to say thank you. And Lynn spotted the idea, and he said, "Oh, I have this idea. We could work together and get kids out on the trail."
Yeah.
Here we are. So we just finished year 2, and I'd like to tell you that we hosted 15 hikes this year.
Incredible.
Over 600 students, I think it was 662 students, on the trails.
That's great.
We get so much out of it. It's incredible to watch the kids respond. I ask them, how many of you have not ever been out in the woods? About a third of them. Astounding. It makes it even more special. But you get them out and they get into their happy place. They're just joyful noises.
Yeah.
Jumping on rocks and looking under things and squealing when they see a bug or a snake or whatever it was. It was just fantastic. From the Board of Ed side, I have to mention a gentleman who, every time we were done with our hikes, the kids had a snack waiting for them. And that would be Ernie
Ernie Kashmir.
from your food services.
Yeah.
Ernie and his crew put together kind of a safe
Healthy,
trail mix,
granola.
a healthy trail mix with the allergy thing in
Yep.
mind. What a great partnership all around.
All around.
Yeah, and our board, when the idea came up that there could be a little financial assist here too for buses, there was no hesitation. So we're
And to
in.
keep that going, we're looking into a T-Mobile $50,000 grant that will hopefully help all of us, with the cost of transportation these days, to continue this effort, because that's what we want to do. We want to sustain this and grow it. So we can't thank you enough.
It was truly our pleasure.
Yeah.
We really had fun.
Yep, the board is all in on this.
I know.
Yep, so it's great for everyone, and just have to take a look at a few pictures or experience what we're seeing, and it's just amazing. So thanks for working with us. It's been,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is comments from citizens in regard to agenda items and other subjects of concern that lie within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education. This is the portion of the agenda where the board welcomes comments from citizens. Each presentation should be limited to 5 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit written comments. Presentations should be related to matters pertinent to Groton. Board members will only ask questions in order to clarify the speaker's presentation and cannot respond during the comments of citizens portion of the board meeting. Citizens should make their presentations from the podium and state their name and addresses for the record. Do we have any citizens that'd like to make a comment tonight? Portia?
Hi, my name is Portia Bordelon, 24 Jefferson Drive. For full disclosure, I'm also a town councilor. First, I'm going to speak as a town councilor, then I'm going to switch my hat. Unfortunately, I think you still see me as a town councilor no matter what I say, but just to be politically correct. At the town council meeting, I had stated, with all the rising concerns, questions that were sent to the Board of Ed, none of those questions were anything that I had sent to the board. It was driven, whoever else sent them. I feel as a town council that our job and our obligation is to make sure education is funded. If there's questions or concerns, and again, I speak for myself, then we need to work together collaboratively, respectfully, as a community, and make sure we find a way to make sure that all students and staff are supported at 100%. It also was stated at the council meeting that there were people, or I won't say names, but in general, I felt there was a sense when I rewatched the video, in my opinion, that some folks were speaking, saying, well, how did we come to a shortfall? Didn't we just approve the budget? I'm asking that they go back and look at that because, in fact, we're talking about a shortfall in this year's budget, not the budget we just voted on. That's for the following year. So just to correct the record, I think there was some misinformation from some people who were asking a lot of questions, which everyone's entitled to ask questions, as you know. I love to ask them as well. But the shortfall falls this year. So the council, the Board of Education that's sitting here, some of them weren't even part of the budget the previous year. So that's just, I want to clear the air on that. I also encourage that this board look into what are the legal ramifications and responsibilities of the town when the shortfall happens. We all fall short. We all have savings, or we hope to have savings, or other ways and means to fund it, and we have to sometimes catch our own shortfalls. So what happens in the town of Groton when the Board of Ed runs a little bit under or over? How is that handled? So I'd love to have that eventually figured out. Also, I, personally had said from the beginning, if there's concerns about how to manage the money. I know we had some changeover in positions. I think it is time to call for a form of audit. At that time, I called it a forensic audit. Me not being an auditor, I don't know what I'm saying. I just found a word and it sounded right. I apologize. I think it's more of an internal audit or an operational audit. So I just wanted to correct myself. I can't correct anybody else. But a forensic audit implies that there's some criminality, and that was not my intention. My intention was, if there's all these questions, I think as this board, because of so many questions that have been asked, I would ask for an operational audit, and that would secure the need, especially with a lot of financial directors changing over. So again, that's what I wanted to state on the record from my stance. But again, I'm 100% for education, and we need to find a way here in this town to work collaboratively and make those means and meet. Moving on, taking my hat off, now becoming a taxpayer resident. I first just want to say that I have said this before in the past. I think we need to start as a town when it comes to graduations, looking at rain dates. Other towns did it. Rosso moved theirs up, and I graduated indoors back in '98, June 12th to be exact, and Beverly Washington handed me my certificate, to be honest. It was a great day, and we make it work. But 4 tickets is hard. When you look at, well, I call it more of a traditional family. More and more people have different style families where they have stepfathers and mothers, and that's 4 tickets right there to bring your stepfather, stepmother, and their significant other, which play an integral part. Some people have 4 parents. That takes 4 tickets. That's not even inviting grandma and grandpa in that new traditional size family. You can't even invite them, let alone a sibling that maybe played a part. So I just think for us in Groton, we need to look at ways where we can grow. Our population has grown, and the auditorium is old. It's been renovated, it's somewhat, except for the lights. But that auditorium, when it was built, was not meant to hold the capacity and families that we have now. We have, like I said, a different style of a more traditional family that we didn't have in the past. So we either need to rent another place to go. People use the Guard and other places like the Coast Guard, or we need to find a way that we can work collaboratively with the team. And I asked around, and a lot of places will do the day before, the day after, and they leave that in their memo when they approve their date. They say that it could change the weather. So just another way to think, and just a suggestion, just a small ask. Also, again, I'm going to say it again always, I do believe in the honors level classes, and I think there's huge gaps here in Groton in the high school level. There's no honors English 11. There was no honors physics. And I think that really boxed out a population of kids who want to move up the ladder, maybe not do IB, and want to go AP. Also, other concerns I've spoke about in the past is on the middle school and high school level, kids that are in 504s and IEPs and are music students, and I even talked to the internal staff, no one ever took the mechanism when running a student, and I implore you guys when looking at curriculum, it's not just the curriculum, but when you're looking at how you're going to drive that curriculum. Take a student that has band, or music, or both, and also has an IEP, and is performing at AP and IB level, which we do have in our district, which we should be encouraging. Back in the day, I don't think that was as common, but we've grown and we've learned that we can have more inclusion and more acceptance, ways to get individual education, and kids are performing in IB and AP, and they deserve the same individual education plan, which we're supposed to meet, acceptance, and making sure we have the staffing and the access available. Overwhelmingly from family, I can speak for myself, as now my kids are now all alumni, we struggle to find a schedule that can fit those needs. And you don't want to box those students out, because I don't feel we're meeting them, in my opinion, under the individual education plan. So when we do this again, and I hope we do it right this time, that we take a child that's coming in 9th grade year, who's a band, who's a marching band, or band student, jazz band, and possibly a choral student, that sings, and try to move them through and see what that looks like for senior year. We should be allowing that student to be able to earn their chords, because you have to have, is it 3 or 4 consecutive A's? A lot of those kids would have achieved it, but they couldn't take the 3rd history class because world history was dropped because they had resource room. That shouldn't be the case. They should have the fair and equal access. Let it be the driven, I forget the program we have, Apex. Give it to them another way. Find a way. Meet the needs of the students. So that's just something I think we can do better at. I know we have funding issues currently, but that doesn't change the access to education. When I call our neighboring schools, honors level courses overwhelmingly are still being offered. A lot of schools don't have IB, and I respect the fact that we have it. It makes us unique, but we can't take away the traditional education of that track to honors to AP. For example, my son is entering college, and I'll use it as an example. He was a kid who was IB and honor AP level. He also had an IEP and performed at that level. He also was that music student. And so I don't speak to just kind of get something for my kid. I learn from what I saw not work, ask other families that had the same experience that are struggling, and then bring it forward. In college now, he took IB English, but they won't accept it as a college credit. So he has to take English again because IB was not something that that school in particular would take. So we need to inform the students as well a little bit better as well. Because in this case, this student should have probably went AP. Looking at the school he was going to, IB wasn't going to really help him. So we have to just make sure we're giving that education to the students. What is the track by sophomore year? What does that look like? And how can we drive a student through in a music program and get them at the end to be able to have the access and the capability to earn all their chords like their peers? And a lot of that happened freshman year, sophomore year when they just didn't get the access. To move it back a step, middle school has the same exact problem. We experienced it, families are experiencing it now. Kids are not getting equal and fair access to programming if they have an IEP. And that should not be allowed here in this district with the amount of money we spend and our curriculum here. So those are my things that I feel passionate about, and I thank you, for your time in looking at these and finding ways that we can meet the needs of our students equally and fairly. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address the board? No? Okay. Next is response to comments from citizens. Anyone have a response? Only to clarify. Okay. Okay, moving on. No student representatives tonight, and I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
All right. So I'd like to have Ben Moon and Clint to be able to do a presentation about our community partnership with Get Outdoors Groton. And I do believe that this has been a collaborative also with the town, and I think you guys actually went on a field trip together and, learned some things. So with Parks and Rec and with the school and with the town, this is what the synergy is in this community, and we need to increase this synergy. So even with this T-Mobile possible grant, it really encourages schools and town and community to come together to receive the $50,000, which I'm sure we can figure out how to spend to get our kids outdoors. So I'm turning it over to you. I've said enough.
I'm all set up here, sharing audio. All right, good. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Ben Moon. Like Superintendent Austin said, I work with STEM and Magna programs at K-5. And the purpose of our presentation today is really twofold. One, again, to just recognize the great work and the great partnership and collaboration that Groton Open Space Association has brought to our district this year and over the years, but then also tell you about a partnership that we call Go Groton, which GOSA, Groton Open Space, is a part of. The Go in Go Groton stands for Get Outdoors, and we wanted to tell you a little bit about that project and that collaboration tonight. Start with a little bit of background. I've been working with GOSA, like Dan O'Connell said, kind of came about through a meeting between Clint and some members from Groton Open Space, and really just started some informal conversations about how we could work together and what a partnership could look like. We started small. GOSA led some field trips, some hikes on their wonderful properties a couple years ago. And then we started to introduce family hikes on the weekends, which also drew a nice population from the community. That group grew. So we went from just us and Groton Open Space to including our Town of Groton Sustainability and Resilience Manager, Megan Granado, and those conversations and those ideas continued to grow. Through Megan, and Representative Baumgartner, we were given an opportunity to apply for a collaborative grant through the Children and Nature Network. We formed a team. The team was made up of myself and Clint from Groton Public Schools, Dan and Groton Open Space Association, members of the Town of Groton Planning Department, and Parks and Rec. And together, we put in a grant to make Groton a nature everywhere community. It was a competitive process with Children Nature Network, an organization called Kaboom, and the National League of Cities. In the fall of 2023, our team was selected as part of this initiative. The goal of the Nature Everywhere project is to increase equitable access to nature in over 100 communities across the country. Being part of this project has a couple of benefits. One, it gives our collaborative team access to grant funding, both in the way of seed grants to get data collected and ideas off the ground, and then down the road, access to larger implementation grants after we've selected a project to go after. In addition to the opportunity for money, we get technical assistance. We're able to work with experts across the country and connect with a network of like-minded communities and learn what's working for them and share our successes with them as well. So again, we were selected in fall of 2023. We've been meeting regularly ever since. This is our team, minus one very important member, Mr. O'Connell over there, who wasn't available at the time of the photo. But again, myself, Clint, Megan Granato, John Reiner from Town Planning Services, and Clayton Potter, who works with Parks and Rec as their outreach coordinator. So this is our Go Groton team. You know, the benefits of having kids outside are numerous, from health and wellness, you know, reduced risks of things like obesity, improved relationship skills. There are benefits to learning, which is our business here, but there's research that supports better academic performance, better focus and attention, and even enhance things like creativity. And in addition, you know, a lot of us in this room care about our town and our community and the environment, and providing kids access to nature at an early age is really a great way to build up that next generation of stewards. So with all those benefits, our group believes that regular time outdoors helps all kids thrive. That's our bottom line. But knowing that, we also know that childhood has shifted indoors over the last few generations. I think there's data to support that, but I think a lot of us also know that anecdotally. And in addition to shifting indoors, we also battle screen time. And more kids spend more time in front of screens than they do outside. And something that's super important to us, but also the Children and Nature Network, is that sometimes access to nature is determined by the part of town you live in, or the color of your skin, or sometimes other factors as well. So that's where our team comes in. We want to make sure that the benefits of nature access, are available to all students in Groton. So this is what we're working on. These are our three kind of core initiatives as our Go Groton team. We are seeking to develop and approve a children's outdoor Bill of Rights for our community. We've connected with communities across the country that have done things that are similar. So we've begun soliciting input from different parts of the community to see what people might want to see in a Bill of Rights. We want to identify, fund, and implement projects that promote that equitable access. Again, we will have access to grant funding through the Children and Nature Network. So part of our job is to collect data, find out where the needs are, find out what the barriers are, and then identify and implement a project that will solve that. And then we want this to be sustainable. This is really about transformational change. So part of our group is also looking at where are there policies in town, both on the town side, the Board of Ed side, where we can infuse nature access for kids. We're doing this in a couple different ways. This is really about community outreach and trying to get as many voices heard as possible, with a particular focus on youth voice. We want to involve young people in this process. So we're in the process of receiving our seed grant money, and as part of our plan, on the Parks and Rec side, our group will be hiring a youth outreach organizer to focus specifically on this work. And then we also have funds in there for the hiring of high school interns and to be able to stipend them to support this community outreach. We'll also be leveraging town GIS mapping capability to look where there may be nature gaps across the community. And then connecting with, we have a lot of organizations in town that are involved in similar work. So part of our mission too is to connect some of those dots. And then on the school side, looking at our curriculum, looking at school-based infrastructure, and seeing if there's needs there too, or places where we can help with that nature equity gap. Our ultimate goal, again, is access to nature for all kids in Groton. And I think it's safe to say, like, at this time, we're not asking for anything. We wanted to make sure that you were informed and in the loop about what we're doing. We will be out there in the community at different events. But again, we want to thank you for your time tonight. Happy to answer any questions. But we really want to make sure that all kids have a chance to be outside.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Moon? Ian?
Yeah, not so much a question, I guess, as much as a comment. I just wanted to say that I'm fully supportive of this endeavor, and I applaud everyone that was involved with it, and I look forward to seeing it come to fruition and further its reach and influence.
Thank you.
So please let us know whatever we can do to help assist, make that happen. Thank you.
Jen?
I might be jumping the gun, but do you have any sort of ideas of what you're looking for so that kids can get the access? Maybe one or two that have risen to the top of all of the projects that you've been reviewing, and we're not going to hold you to any of it.
Want to start? You want me to?
I was going to start by saying it's safe to say we have no shortage of ideas.
Yeah.
But we actually visited a couple other communities, and some things that we've seen, green schoolyards, so that's something we could look at, is our school-based infrastructure and what kind of nature access kids have there. Nature-based play spaces is another thing we've seen other communities do. So, kind of shifting away from traditional playground equipment to more natural features. And then just the idea of building up, our youth voice, and maybe there's opportunities there to, put things in place sustainably that involve youth consistently in this work. So,
And if I may.
yeah.
I'll be brief. One of the things that I think struggle is an okay word to use. As we're meeting, we naturally jump into many of these ideas, and I think it was an important point. We have so many wonderful organizations that are part of this mission in Groton, and we do feel like this can be connective tissue. Look what we've accomplished by just a haphazard, meeting of the minds with GOSA, people out working hard, and I just stopped by, and it becomes this. It's wonderful. One of the things we're struggling with is the fact that we're in the planning stage, and we talk about that often. We don't want to predetermine the outcome or what the solutions are without doing a thorough process of the data gathering, the assessment, and so forth. And that's where the Nature Everywhere group has been wonderful, because we're learning from communities like Austin and others that have been through this process. So it's kind of a shortcut for us to see some of the best practices on how to collect this data, get youth voice involved, really understand the needs of the community, then partner that up with our resources in the town, which has been wonderful. So to be able to map this and understand this, and then we can turn back to our wonderful list of ideas, hope that matches, find those matches, and then implement. So we're in the planning stages right now. It's a planning seed grant, and if we do our work appropriately, then that will unlock dollars for us for have those implementation grants to do that. So that's what I'm excited about, even though, yes, I want to jump to solution space right now and go, but I shouldn't, because I don't necessarily know, we don't necessarily know what's most appropriate until we do that thorough review. So, but thank you.
That's fair, thank you.
So I've got a couple of questions, but thank you, GOSA. Thank you to your efforts as well. It's exciting to see. And you can see the smile on the faces of everyone up on that rock, too. So I'd like to see the before and after picture of that one. But I've got a couple of questions. You mentioned quite clearly the importance of access to nature and just being outside for helping kids develop and their creativity. How does outdoor classrooms fit in and trail access right next to the schools? Because I think we have that at a couple schools, but perhaps not at all of them.
You're better qualified than I am for this one.
Sure. Yeah, as part of our work, and I guess that's really started at the beginning of last year, we did like an infrastructure audit. And we looked at all of our schools and do they have outdoor classrooms? Do they have gardens? Do they have direct trail access from schools? So just kind of like collecting that information to see where there are gaps. We're actually pretty fortunate here. Like, we've got a lot of resources in this area. Most of our schools either have outdoor classrooms or are in the process of finishing them. We've got gardens in a lot of places. We recently were able to get some access for Charles Barnum at the Gunjibwant property because they're so close. And a lot of our schools do have direct trail access. Kind of our next step is making sure or to looking at ways to utilize those resources fully. Getting teachers comfortable. That's one thing that's been great about the GOSA partnership is, you know, teachers taking kids out in the woods with some support from GOSA volunteers, we hope starts to make teachers more comfortable to do those things on their own. And I guess the last thing I'd say about that too, this summer we're offering a Project Learning Tree outdoor learning PD for teachers. Optional, but we've already had a bunch sign up. But again, it's kind of another step to get some specific like curriculum resources and activities out there that teachers could use.
I'd also like to add that Ernie Koschmieder was early on, when I first got here, even 10 years ago, getting these different grants to have, really staff that can get into the schools and do some work with the gardens and sustainable food and nutrition, so all tying in that farm to table, farm to school, farm to families idea. And that's where a lot of the original gardens started, even at Claude Chester. Then we, with our partnership with Project O, they've gotten several BWET grants. So many of our schools have gotten outdoor classrooms there. And with the MSEP grant from Groton Middle, which was a $5 million grant that took the two middle schools, Westside and Cutler, humanities and STEM, to make the MYP STEAM Groton Middle School. And so that outdoor classroom was one of the plans through that grant. And it's utilized, now that the desks are there, and I saw it all spring being utilized. So I know that there's talk about a trail somewhere on the Merritt property that we're looking forward to cultivating. So each school does have something. I think Northeast Academy was early on, and there was a PTO project. So between the PTOs and the grant fundings that we've secured, it seems like we have something in every place to grow.
Not to belabor the point, but I'm going to belabor the point. This is a perfect example of the partnership that has been so wonderful to us. We had this idea about using some of the wooded area near Groton Middle School because it's in a class period you can't get to Sheep Farm South or into Haley or whatever, but we have this beautiful piece of woods that we want to keep sacred and so forth there, but use. So with one email to GOSA, all of a sudden, a week later we have a meeting and their folks are showing up and helping us walk the property, give guidance on what we can do to keep it, not do no harm, but potentially use it. And then 2 weeks later, the town planning and zoning sent some folks over to help us give some guidance as far as the wetlands and so forth. So we've done nothing nothing to that yet, but we have plans to do that. But we have these wonderful partners like GOSA and Town Planning and Zoning to help us, and it's worked out really nice. And we're hoping that we can do that in the near future. Again, following all the rules, honoring that woods and so forth. But to have the place that's 30 seconds outside the door within a class period where we have opportunities for students to be in the woods, I think would be very important. Again, those are some of the benefits of us working together, town organizations, all pushing on the same side of the boulder, if you will.
Thanks. That sort of leads to my next question, but first I want to say thanks for bringing up the Northeast Academy outdoor classroom and the trail that connects it. My children went through Northeast Academy, and they really appreciated that outdoor classroom. And if my memory is correct, the Girl Scouts troop under Michelle Gustafson's leadership really helped with that quite a bit. And so they enjoyed contributing to the school that way. So you mentioned, so having those opportunities to get out in an outdoor classroom or get right to a trail during a school day is wonderful and essential. I also, if my memory serves me correctly, I think GOSA helped support transportation, bus, and so that's a huge pressure in any school's budget these days. It's the rising cost of transportation, and it limits the number of field trip opportunities that can be happen. So with the grant fundings, with collaborations like this, that really helps our students get outside the traditional school setting into nature and into different places. So I encourage that.
May I comment on that? So not only did they provide the majority of the funds for the transportation, but these were guided hikes where there were cones out for parking, there were guide leaders, there were discussions on the trails and so forth. So yeah, GOSA is a full service operation. So they really took good care of our students and our teachers.
Thank you. And then you mentioned Project Oceanology. I also thought of the water taxi across the Thames. Going out in trails in the woods is wonderful. As a marine scientist, I also point out that getting out in the ocean and actually helping link people to the coast that is their right to access is really important as well.
And all of our intra-district magnets for all 5 are very STEAM-like, between the arts and STEM. And of course, Thames River is the Marine Science School, and they actually hook up with Marine Science High School and do a lot of that work. So it's exciting. It's exciting for our students.
Yeah, well, Bev wanted to go.
My name is Sydney Van Zant. I'm one of the founders of
Here,
Groton
Sydney.
Open Space.
Please.
I'm having a hard time hearing what's going on, so I'm going to just blast here.
Well, we need a microphone for the
We need you mic'd up just so that
Mic
people at
me
home
up.
can hear you.
Mic me
We
up.
want people at home to
Okay.
be able to hear you.
Okay, when we got here in 1967, actually, we bought our house in 61. It was condemned at the time. We had no sewers and waters. See this? December 8th. See what year this is?
Yes, I have a copy of it.
You do?
Right here. We had no open space. Here's Haley Farm. Here's Haley Farm, which we raised the funds for. And one of the things that one of the students did, he was 7. We had to raise the equivalent of $350,000, right? In not very many months. He had this envelope painted green and blue with flowers and things. He said, I went around and I collected money and I raised $7.50. Now, we had Johnny Kelly, who's the marathon, and his son, or one of the kids he taught, put on a rock concert. Can you imagine what the head of the city of Groton felt about having a rock concert 4 months after that major event? But here we are in Life magazine, me in my miniskirt. And a lot of times it's helpful having a name Sydney, because that's a male name. And very often when I get up to speak, somebody would say, okay, Mr. Van Zandt is next. And the lady in the miniskirt with high heels and stockings would come out. Oh, I see it isn't a Mr. So I would like to tell you all that our website is gosaonline.org. And if you go there, you can click on properties, and you can then download all of the maps of the properties we have saved. 2,170 acres in this town that had no open space, And the disasters of water damage, the disasters of runoff, the disasters that was going to come if we hadn't saved Bluff Point. They were going to dig 650 square yards of rock out of there for storage of oil for New England, and then have the dock at the end of the beach that we were trying to save so that you could drive and get the oil and take the oil. And the amount of stuff was so awful. Nothing was going to happen in this town until we would either intervene because the development was so awful, or we would go in with hired experts, and they would then tell the poor people in planning, zoning, wetlands, what's important. And if you go today to today's New London Day about an article in Mystic about a development that has gone through, it's filled up dug up a wetland, and it now has water all over the place, and there's nowhere for it to go but higher. And these were the things that we were doing at that time. Okay, we got in 2017 the award from the National Land Trust Alliance for the best land trust in the whole country, all volunteer land trusts. So many of us have had no training, but very often, I haven't had a lot of training, but very often the PhD on both sides of me want me there, because in my miniskirt named Sydney, I would go in and we would then get things done. So I thank you so much for bringing us in here, because we are the quiet ones who work in the background and say with our teeth out, you can't do that, or we're going to do that. But our water, everything was running into Fort Hillbrook, into the Fisher's Island Sound, and the whole end of the sound is dead. Why is it dead? It's because all of the stuff immediately, they would put in a development here, and we'll let the water run down here, and it'll go away. And there is no away. You've got to find the finish for everything. So anyway, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
He's got a booklet that I gave him. Another organization that I formed with David McCain of Avery Point, and it was, we formed it at Earth Day. We had 800 people at Avery Point, this little group that didn't belong to anywhere, to anyone before. And we got a whole bunch of teachers who then put together a booklet that I gave him a copy of, and we ended up giving each library of each school in not only Groton, but some of the other schools, and every teacher got their own grade level so that they knew the difference or the importance of salt water, of keeping trees, of not filling in the marshes. The marshes, oh. So all the marshes, wetlands were wastelands, so you filled them in automatically, and then you had major trouble. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ian and then Dean.
Well, Bev had her hand up, and
Oh, did you have your
she
hand?
hasn't asked anything
Okay,
yet.
all right.
I already had a comment once.
Hey, thank you, Ian. Ben, do all your activities take place during the school day, or do you do after-school activities as well?
Both. Most of the GOSA hikes took place during the school day, but we've also got schools that run after-school hiking clubs and things like that, so.
And weekends
It's really a
that they've
mix.
helped you with.
And we did family events on weekends, too.
Ah, okay. Well, thank you. I'm in full support, getting those kids away from the computers and outdoors. That's the best.
That is.
So, thank you.
Thank you. So just a quick question. I might have missed this earlier in the presentation. Is there an intent to have these activities become like part of credited classes?
You want to speak to that one? We've talked about it a little bit, but there's no formal plans in place.
As of right now, no.
Okay.
Is it certainly on the table? And I think a natural next step to discuss after the, assessment and data is collected and so forth. I think we've already seen some anecdotal evidence that students are interested in that being part of it. Certainly at the upper levels, we have had discussions. We've kicked it around with many names, kind of junior conservationist program and so forth. We believe, kids should do as much as they can, and it shouldn't always be student-led. Obviously, safety concerns and knowledge and so forth, but, GOSA has been wonderful in leading these hikes. We'd like to see sooner rather than later where teachers are leading those hikes with GOSA support, or even students leading those hikes eventually. So the answer to your question is no, but certainly on the table for discussion, and I think I don't mean to speak for Ben, but I think our shared hope is that that comes out of this assessment process and becomes part of that.
Our initial data shows like elementary kids in general, there's a lot of opportunities. Again, not all kids have access to those, but the further you go away from there, so if you look at early childhood and then you look at high school, again, our early data shows that's where there may be more need. So it is something we've been looking at it, I think, more from a internship, kind of angle. But looking at it from a curriculum standpoint would be valuable also.
Yeah, I would encourage that because I think, one, the school does have, the school has the kids for a long period of time during out the day, and we do have to deliver curriculum education, and there's no reason. In fact, there's a lot of data that supports experiential education as a way to further enhance what happens in the classroom. In a lot of ways, students retain that more in a more substantial fashion.
Sorry.
I had a number of family and friends who were involved with a program called Nature's Classroom. Are you all familiar with that?
Yeah.
No, okay.
I know there's been some schools that have built that into their curricular program at different grade levels.
Yeah.
Like a sleepaway experience.
Yeah, and they have different variations, like some, and they actually have developed their programming now to go on the road as well. So they're actually just recently looking to do outreach.
Oh, cool.
So thinking that grants tend to favor partnerships.
Yeah.
And thinking of ways to accelerate. This is a great idea, and I'm in full support of it. But I think we could, even go further with it, where we could have accredited classes happening outside. And, a lot of this has to do with orientation as well as survival skills, as well as, ecology, in the rough, out there doing it. So, and they have instructors that are certified that, have experience doing this. So maybe there's an opportunity there. I could email around but I think that could be a great way to, accelerate and enhance what you've started.
Yeah, I mean, I would appreciate any information you've got or connections.
Sure.
Definitely send them my way.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
We recognize Dean and then Bev.
Any contact with Avalonia? Don't hit me.
More the merrier.
She actually started that as well.
Nice tip, thank you. I don't know whether they would be of any use.
Yeah, as part of one of the steps we had to go through for this Go Groton project was to do like a stakeholder analysis and really create like a list of like who are all the people that are involved in this work or who touch this work. And Avalonia certainly came up. We held an event at the Groton Community Center a couple weeks ago. It was a community wellness hub event. And Avalonia was we invited a bunch of organizations to table at that event, and Avalonia was one, and they came to that event too. So, and, not to the extent that we've been working with GOSA, but certainly they're a part of this work.
If you need Dennis Main's phone number, let me know.
Will do.
Bev.
Thank you, Jay. When Ian was speaking, he jolted my memory about my grandson, and they live out in Denver, Colorado, and he went away for 2 days, on a Monday and a Tuesday, outdoors. They did hiking and playing games outside, and he had a wonderful time. So outdoor, like Ian was saying, outdoor activities and getting him outside, I mean, that's something he's never going to forget. I mean,
That's right.
I give a lot of credit to the teachers taking a class.
I was going to say, I think we should include that on the list, assuming the Board of Ed members volunteer to help us support that,
I
including the
volunteer.
overnights.
I volunteer Ian.
Okay, great. Ian and Bev, we'll sign them up.
Sign me up. I'm ready.
But do all schools have the same amount of activities and hiking opportunities, or?
This year, we put the opportunities out to the elementary schools equally, but not all schools took advantage of it equally. So we made sure that everybody that wanted to participate this year had an opportunity. We did get at least one classroom from every elementary school. But to Superintendent Austin's point, we are looking to expand this for next year and are looking for ways to identify additional funding through grants or other partnerships so that we can continue to grow this.
One of the things that Ben is an expert on is the NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards, K-5, and he then coordinates with the STEM leadership 6 through 12. So he's a wonderful conduit to us, K-12, to really understand those science standards and where they overlap with this environmental science. And so it is something that we are required to teach and kids are assessed on. So that's important too. I think you're right. They don't forget this kind of thing. You know, it's not like studying just a chapter in a textbook. It's really experiencing this in their life, and they're going to remember it.
First of all, I'm sorry that I'm late.
What's that?
Would I be able to mention an example of something happened this year that I think it fits right into what you're talking about? I think it was NEA, and they mentioned that they were working on this particular grade level. I don't remember what it was, but they were talking about water. And, you know, where does it go? And, you know, questions that most people don't think about. Well, they mentioned it to Lynn, and when we got out onto the trail, plenty of water, especially at Sheep Farm, and I think that's where we were that day. So we had an opportunity to talk about, you know, where do you think this goes? Where does it come from? And some of the kids actually had a pretty good idea, but no, most of them did not.
Those are kindergartners.
Well, there you go. Kindergartners, some of them knew a little bit about this. So there was that's kind of what could be. And I think together, you'll see that happen more and more. But this is just an example. Had a great outcome without a whole lot of effort. And felt good to do it.
It's great.
So I'm sorry that I was late. I do have a note for the vice chair, excusing my absence. But I do want to thank GOSA, and if you'll just indulge me for a moment, I want to shake the hand of Sydney Van Sant. And my son is not going to believe that I met the woman who saved Haley Farm. Every time we walk there,
Oh, good.
and we go by the broken stone
Oh,
and everything,
that's so wonderful.
Yes.
Do you know what was going to be there?
probably a development.
269 duplex housings up the marshland.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Well-
Thanks for everything you've done for this town.
Yes, but look,
Yes,
Yeah.
and for everyone who's joined with you.
yes,
Thank you.
yes, thank you.
Do you have a-
Yeah. I just wanted to express my personal thanks to Sydney. She knows where I live, and it's very close to what she saved, so I can hike for hours out of my house and never touch asphalt, thanks to what GOSA has done and started by Sydney. And I also really do appreciate, Ben and Clint, what you guys are doing, getting kids outside. I mean, there is a true value in education and in understanding the outdoors and bringing kids into that environment to feel comfortable going outdoors later on. So just by these short little trips might make kids in high school feel comfortable going for longer hikes, and maybe developing, different, I mean, their lives will turn out differently having appreciations for that. So I do appreciate that. I'm hopeful that we can do even more at the middle school. It seems like, you know, that there's a lot of kids in a small area in that property. There's a little bit of woods, so, you know, if I were to say it's great that the elementary kids can do it, but if we can get some of the middle schoolers out of the school during the day, you know, that would be fantastic.
And even the high school, because they're sitting on the hill together.
As I mentioned before, the work has started at GMS, so,
Yeah.
And we will be looking for more volunteers to help us, so.
Yep, well, thank you.
I just want to say, when I was a kid, you were outside all the time. I mean, you only came in to eat and then go to bed. And then you were outside. You didn't stay home watching. Well, we didn't have computers either. So we did have TVs, but you didn't watch TV. You were outside playing, running around, playing dodgeball, kickball, whatever you were doing. But so we need to get our kids back outside. It's going to help them socially, too.
Well,
One last, so as far as like the planning stages and the report, as far as like the needs assessment and all that, what's your timeline on completion estimated?
You know the timeline better than I do. We're about 6 months into a 24-month cycle, but.
Yeah, so we've got a 2-year process. We're about 9 months in. We're about to receive our seed grant funding and hire our organizer. So by about a year from September, October-ish, we should have a project identified. Again, we're going to be able to hire interns along the way, so work will be happening. But as far as like identifying a bigger project to go after, we're about probably 15 months, something like that.
And very quickly, it's a bigger project. It's also an overall, kind of an overarching plan, which is not a standalone plan. Obviously, the town and other bodies are working on a lot of these initiatives. And again, as we've said a couple times now, we really see this as some of the glue that stitches this together. We don't want to recreate all of this. We want to help highlight some of the wonderful things that are happening and make it more equitable, systematic, and regular for our students and our kids in Groton.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other
thank you
comments?
so much. Really wonderful.
Thank you, Ben, Clint. Thank you, Gosa.
Thank you for all the great work.
And I would like to offer to anybody on the board
To go for one of these
that
hikes.
is so excited to hear about the hikes. Dan and I I'm Dan's wife Lynn, but we would be so excited to lead any of you on hikes if you so desire. So,
We'll introduce you to the Merlin Bird app, and you can,
yeah.
the kids love the Merlin Bird app. so.
We've been sending it out Parent Square, we've been sending it out on the website, my weekly updates that people get, and my, messaging, so we really have been honoring it every step of the way, so families know.
You may all be happy to know, I mean, the kids, like Dan said, we've hiked with almost 700 kids this year.
Wow.
They were the best group of kids. They were excited, they were eager. Even if we had some kids in our groups that, when they first started out, you knew they were thinking, ugh. By the time you get them 100 feet onto a I'm sorry, I didn't realize what By the time you get them 100 feet out onto a trail, they are smiling and laughing, and nothing is more heartwarming than children just shrieking with laughter. They are so inquisitive. I'm just so impressed with the kids in this town. Your teachers are doing a great job. We had so many parent volunteers who came with them, the support staff. This was better than we could ever have imagined. So thank you all for that, and Cannon should be so proud of the schools here, the teachers, the staff, the kids, everything. It's been just a phenomenal year, and we look forward to continuing it.
Thank you.
We're going to grow it.
No, I don't. I'd love to have.
I want to go home. Easy one, easy one.
We can do anything. Oh, really? Absolutely. Many of the
So what would happen is school would come with a particular grade, whether it was 2 or 3 classes or whatever, and we always made sure there was one goes to hike leader and then
That's really the fun of it, getting into
the kids are so full of wonder. They're smart. They knew so much. We'd be hiking along, and they'd be telling me things that I thought, wow, maybe I just don't remember knowing that when I was 8. But really inquisitive, well behaved, and I want to stress that because I was a registered nurse and did most of it in the hospital. But my last 6 years was spent as a school nurse in a faraway town. The kids in this town are really, they were always so well behaved. They're appreciative. I love it. They are. They were good. They were really fun. So we look forward to doing it with more. And yeah, so thank you for all that.
Staff made it easy. We make sure to get
Yeah.
it in, organized them before we go.
She always play the second half first. That's the important part.
And I think middle school and high school kids, getting them out and like learning how to lead is awesome.
Yeah.
Like a club.
One of the issues for this year was getting the kids out and all. It was a question of for buses, how that would be taken care of. So Ben and
Oh, boy. Joan's gonna have a hard time with the minutes on this one.
worked on a plan and
It's
came
all
back
gonna be
and
recorded. Anyway, we're just gonna.
Reasonable and add a half.
All right. All right. So, our next item would be the report from the Director of Finance.
Actually, in your packet, you all have a copy of a brief narrative. I'm going to expand that as we go a little deeper down the road here.
I think we've got Clint who's going to put that up for everybody to see. Let me just, but you can explain it, and let me just get him in.
Within here, it's just a brief narrative of some of the highlights. It's only a week in between, so it's kind of short. As we move along and get further into budgeting and moving into, and closing out the year end, that this will grow, this narrative. So it's just a brief sample of what we're talking about in terms of a narrative. If there's something else you want on there, give me a shout and see if we can accommodate. Okay. You'll notice that the object code bottom line grew. We're at $1,124,000. We've encumbered probably 99.9% of everything that we're aware of. There may be a few items that were missed, like today we received some unencumbered bus PO requirements that we had to put in, so those are encumbered. We've also closed out a few POs that were in there. So again, as stated in the narrative, it's a dynamic situation, and it's a moving target right now. It seems to have stabilized at about 1.1 million overall. We did add to the revenue side another $332,000 in impact aid. You notice we're at $6,174,000 at this point. We're about $2 million over what we estimated in terms of the budget. So from our standpoint, the impact aid was a direct result of having additional students related to the DOD. So in theory, that aid should be coming to the board to help support the students.
And a lot of these are definitely related to special needs.
Yes, and there are special needs, right. Also within the packet, I believe it was passed out today, this evening, would be the object code review on what we call the drawdown against some of the impact aid and different things like that, where we can move items around. We did delete 1 or 2 items out of there that in terms of debits and credits, it would be just not possible. So we did delete one or two items out. Having said that, we did complete one today, the 39,000 on the correct, that's been processed. So the overall adjustment was 210,000 on that side. Originally on the top, the code balance was the 1,124,000. It's been adjusted down by the 39,000. Right now, a summary of all, if we make all the adjustments that are on here, we're in the red about $250,000.
I think, Clint, if you can move it over a little bit, because we're missing D, column D.
Need column D?
Yeah,
There you go.
there we go.
Okay, so all the other items that you see below from row 15 down, those are in the process of having account code structures set up between us and the town to allow us to do some of these transactions. As we emailed Dee today, we clarified a few things so that some of these things can be processed. So we are in the process of trying to get some of the DOD funding moved over.
Yeah, it
So-
says payment in progress, or process, yep.
So are you saying the 352,859 and the 13,299 that was received last week
Correct.
is in transit from the town?
It was received via ACH. The town does have the money. We gave instructions on where we would like to apply the money. They are in the process of setting up accounts at this moment.
But they agree that it's due to the board?
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, that's.
But they did
that's
ask
the-
where are we putting it, so
I
we're
did
putting
ask,
it
where do you want to
two
put it?
places,
How do you want to
special ed,
apply
and,
it?
yep.
And we've given those instructions. As of about 5 o'clock this evening, I haven't received a reply to that email.
Right. So when we say there's a current estimated deficit of 247, 943.58, that's assuming that these funds are received. And we are certain that the 352,859 is not a reduced payment on DOD supplemental?
As far as I know, it's not,
Okay.
as far as I know.
All right. And as far as we know,
I'm
the,
ha- And bear in mind, I'm
Yeah.
having, because I'm relatively new to the district,
right,
there are 3 sections of the sam.gov, gov.gov, just.gov, and there's one more to get the DOD. There's 3 segments that have to tie out for me to get access. I don't have full access to it yet, so I can't see everything I need.
But
to
we're
see.
working on it.
But we are working
Yeah,
on it.
we're working on getting it.
Perfect, that's what I was working on right before I came.
Yeah,
to the meeting.
and I was able to download those last 2 payments because I have access.
Right. But we do have a transmittal from them saying this is the dollar amount. The town actually received that. They do have the ACH transaction, so it is in our hands, the town's hands, all of our hands.
okay.
We physically have the funding.
And we still don't know about the DOD supplemental.
No, it's in Congressman Courtney's office. I've talked to Auntie Grant, who's a Fitch Falcon, and she's been awesome at trying to really locate that information.
That's the 515, right?
515, right. Originally budgeted for 555, but then corrected to 515. So if this 352 is not going to be transmitted by the town, you're actually closer to the 553, 925, which is about $40,000 off the DOD payment.
If it's related, yes.
I just have a couple questions about encumbrances. So, on the April 14th object code summary, we had, I believe, about 116,000 remaining balance on electricity and heating. Now we're seeing a negative 466,693 for a delta of over 500,000 since April 14th. And I guess I'm just wondering, are we that far behind on paying electric bills?
Paying
Or,
has nothing to do.
all right, so,
You have a PO that's been generated.
Yeah.
You have to remember, we also, I don't think it was fully encumbered. So we also, you have the PO, but you also, if you encumber something, you need to also either encumber the proper amount or estimate the proper amount. I believe it was possibly underestimated, or it wasn't fully encumbered. That's my guess. How we developed, how the April 14th report was developed, I don't know what it was predicated on, but I do know that if it's not fully encumbered or obligated, it's not going to show up. I made sure we went through over the last 4 weeks and we started getting our arms around everything. I'm not going to show you a report where we're taking a credit where I can't take the credit yet. I want to make sure that I'm giving you the right picture. Okay, I also did, prior to the meeting tonight, I was doing some research. All of your, and Susan, you don't even know this yet.
No.
All of your,
Microphone a little closer, please.
let me move it over a little bit. Make sure that's closed. All of our contracts are expiring this year. So I need to review what was budgeted for this upcoming year to make sure that enough was budgeted, because your fuel contracts are expiring in August and your electricity contracts are expiring at the end of December, late November, December. Okay, for the most part, everything through Eversource is expiring. So the 7.7 cents per kilowatt hour in general it's out the window after December.
Now, don't we do that with the town, though? Don't we
I
go in
believe
as a,
so. need
I
to
think we
talk to
do that
John to
together,
see where
yeah,
we're at with that.
yeah.
My
That's how we-
recollection,
As part of the packet, you saw an increase coming through for spring as well.
right, yeah, from Groton Utilities.
Your natural gas is expiring this year, so every fuel consumption that we deal with is expiring. We also stumbled upon and again, Susan, I apologize, I normally review some of these items with you. We found one of the schools, and I don't have that with me, was left off the contract for Eversource. As a matter of fact, I was speaking with the gentleman who's leaving it in a week or two, the project manager for the solar. But one of the schools was left off the contract, so we built in a loss of $3,500 a month.
Was it Mary Morrison that's only being utilized for?
I'll double check.
Okay.
I have
All right.
the invoice on my desk that we're listening.
So,
So we have a built-in deficit of $35,000 approximately for the annual. So little things like that. I mean, I'm analyzing all the contracts now to see where we have to go and what needs to be done.
right, well, I remember an explanation last year that each of these schools is on a different contract, because obviously they were built at different times, and, you know, obviously when they did the contract for Charles Barnum, there was no Thames, and so I'm curious how they all ended up expiring at the same time, if they all started at different times. So I'd like to see kind of an overview of all those contracts.
Like I said,
I think we should
just
talk to the
pulled
town,
apart
too.
Right before we left,
Yeah.
came to the meeting, so.
But you're saying that you're 99.9% certain that this encumbrance for heating and oil is correct,
Yes.
just through June 30th? That what you think we're,
obligated to, so your June is due what, mid-July, something like that, so yes, I'm saying that it's due, we're 99.9% positive. Now, again, there's a timing factor, we need to make sure that when you run your POs, you clear your encumbrances as well. So we found in some of our processes, we were not timely in when the report was run. That may have been the case in April, I don't know. But there are timing factors involved. That's why at times, they'll say like this week's a payroll week, I would strongly suggest don't run a report. If you want a snapshot of now, don't run a report today and expect it to be 100% accurate. Give it till Monday or Tuesday, because you need to clear the encumbrances from your payroll, because you'll double. Systems will double up unless you clear that encumbrance, that payroll encumbrance.
but this is clean.
Excuse me.
This is clean.
It's about as clean as it can be predicated upon any unforeseen.
Right.
It's like 99.9% clean at this point.
I would like to say, too, we knew early on in this budget that there were escalating costs. There were property damages from September, and I can remember having that conversation about utilities and transportation and some special ed were all up, even recognizing that early in the fall. And we knew that because the year before, it was over by about $500,000. So, in the '23 budget. So it was definitely impacting.
Okay,
What
so
was
I'm going to recognize Jen and then Dean. And then Bev?
I'm gonna go like this, Jerry, so you
Yeah.
can see.
Yeah, I can't see you.
Couple questions.
Jen, is your mic on?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Couple of questions and a couple of statements. I guess the statement first is, or an ask. Since you're interim director, and I've seen a lot of process failures coming through, right? The numbers. Not this is probably something you inherited. So I would like you or somebody on your staff to like put a process guideline in place, because even if you have one, I don't feel like it's being followed, because we should be able, from that April report, to determine what changes have been made from April to now in regards to those encumbrances. That's the first thing. Second thing, more like a question, is the fuel expiring. Now I'm concerned about 2025, if you can tell if that was included. I think they might have just put an extra 3 to 5% on our budget. So if you can look at that for me, I greatly appreciate that.
And I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's one of the things on my list. I need to evaluate how the fuel budget was created, number one. Number two, how accurate is it? With any luck, it might be less. Because it's, again, that's a timing issue as well. I mean, I think you're paying $3.10 a gallon at the moment through August. If you've consumed all that fuel, then there's no storage fees. But I know East River charges a storage fee of 15, 20 cents a gallon if you don't consume all you say you're going to consume. So I need to take that into consideration as well. On top of that, I know in February, fuel prices were down to about $2.88 a gallon. So again, I'm not sure where you're at. I'm not sure if I can piggyback on some of this other stuff. Or again, if the nice thing about it, the market's on a downward trend.
Yes.
So we might be able to pull a rabbit out of our hat, so to speak.
Perfect. Hopefully, right?
We usually
But I'm
do that
really
with the
concerned about the failures and like us getting different numbers and not being able to reconcile, not being able to walk us through.
I wouldn't say they're not necessary. I think there was just some items that were not encumbered.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
We're missing it. We wrote a PO, we sent a request out, we wrote a PO, it wasn't accounted for.
No, that's not the case. When you create
If
the
we,
encumbrance,
if we missed it, then something
created
failed.
budget, is what I'm saying. When you create the PO, for example, you create a PO for $200,000 for your utilities for one school, and then you work that off, that becomes your encumbrance. Now you start working off that 50,000 or 10,000 or whatever the invoice is for that amount. So that starts reducing your encumbrance, provided you render the encumbrance properly.
Correct. You said it properly.
Right, so I'm assuming, you know what happens when you assume?
Yes.
I'm not going to say that our processes were not followed, the ones that are here. Do we need to make some changes in process? Susan and I are already speaking of.
Yes, that should never have occurred, right? And then, so I'm looking for you as interim to help us with that, because obviously there was something wrong. We can't deal with this again in the upcoming year. So we need your help. We are not part of the operations, and we do not review. That is not our role. We are trusting that the people who are hired, whether, yourself or the people who are doing the work itself, that they are following the processes. The processes are clear and concise. It's putting a lot of risk on the reports we receive and the decisions that we are able to make, because now we're looking to see, are these numbers fine. So I'm thankful for the cleanup you're doing, but we need your help. And second, I said this last time, numbers, please, just for professionalities to look at it, write justified.
Again, this one report, I'm very cautious about doing that to this one report. I know I can write justify it, but
We don't want to mess it up, Jen.
Okay, I will close my eyes.
this has not.
Okay.
And I am, with a month to go, I'm
No,
not
we have
messing
bigger
with
fish.
No, we will take it then. I won't say anything, but everybody knows where I'm coming from. So thank you.
I had a board member at my last.
All right, Dean?
All right, I took the liberty, because I was curious, somebody asked me, they said, well, don't you get reports? How did you not know that this number was coming along? I said, well, we actually get reports at all our regular board meetings. We get an object code summary that shows how we're tracking. And I was curious to compare fiscal year ending '24 with fiscal year ending '23. And how does that compare? So if we were to just, not that '23 was some sort of a golden child, but at least since October, if you were to compare, this is just a gross comparison. You go month by month, what percentage of the budget have we eaten through? I'm going by expenditures and not by encumbrances, just what's reported as we're having spent. What are we reported to have spent that month? And at least starting from October, FYE '23 was running hotter, sometimes a lot hotter. So if the question is, why weren't there flags? Why didn't we see flags? If you have any sort of a memory of what was last year like, what's this year like, other than being told, well, we may be having a problem because we were being given heads up, maybe having issues with health, but we'll see. Maybe the next couple of months will come in. We may be having issues with utilities, but we'll see. Remember, we were always told there were some possible flags. Transportation. And then it seemed like the 1.2 million just came out of nowhere. So I was curious to see where along the way would we have said, holy smokes, we've gone too far into our budget. And again, all I can say is, I see the arithmetic working out, but the prior year was even hotter, and we weren't anywhere close to $1.2 million. So, yeah, it's a surprise. I mean, even in June of last year, we had gone through 92% of the budget, whereas June of this year, almost the same, 10 days apart, 85.7% of the budget. And you see things like that in prior months as well. So nothing would have given it away that we were heading toward this kind of a deficit. Now, that's just a comment. I've got no questions or asks. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Can I
And then we're
comment
going to
on
go
that?
to Beth.
Because you said it was just actuals, right? Like, there's no encumbrances. I mean, like so it might be there.
I went back to, excuse me, to 2022, just pulled out what was reported as expended in the major categories: salaries, benefits, purchase services, et cetera.
And that's where I think if all the actuals are trending right, it's probably like that open commitment was probably not being done correctly or at all.
Yeah, no, there's something buried in here, but if you look at it just from this point of view, there's nothing particularly alarming in the trend of the FYE '24. Oh, by the way, this is all right justified.
Is that a document you send around?
I didn't send it around, no, I mean, I made it up this afternoon just for my own,
Is there an electronic version of that you could easily email?
Everything's electronic. If you want the Excel spreadsheet, I can give it to you, sure.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to just, take a look at that in my leisure.
All right.
Ray, can you refresh my memory again why electricity and heating was up more this year and we're over budget?
Again, I've only been here about 6 weeks or so. I can only assume, and I shouldn't say that word, but I can only assume certain things either were not encumbered or the POs were not large enough to allow for the full encumbrance to occur. That's because we did write quite a few POs because it just wasn't encumbered. And you have to remember too, I believe some accounting practices have been pushed forward to the board too. We had to last year.
We changed.
Some accounting practices were changed so that what was a rollover from year to year is no longer permitted. So that had to be changed as well. And this is my understanding. I'm not quite, I haven't seen the written ruling on it yet. So we're still waiting for the auditors, basically, which is another story. But
And I think you've told the story that in one district they did it one way, in the other district they did it another, that there's not a law against one way or the other.
We were told that, I guess you were told it was a vanilla accounting by the audit firm. I've dealt with Bloom Shapiro, I've dealt with a couple other large firms, and we've done it both ways. So
We just have to pick away and do it.
it would be consistent.
Well,
Be
we
consistent,
had to
yeah.
pick away
Changing from-
midstream and change it, so that did cause,
So that probably caused some of the angst that you're seeing right now, okay? Because it rolls forward. Sooner or later, it's gonna roll forward. Why the utilities is not reflective of what you thought it was going to be or what it was projected to be, I'd have to rip it apart because I know you're looking at that. That's why I have all the invoices on my desk, but I would go back to the historic, the April baseline that you're talking about, and I'll see what's changed since then.
Yeah, because that was showing a surplus,
Right.
and now we're at a deficit.
You're in a deficit, correct.
And it just, we all know that electricity rates have gone up.
You're looking at 7.8 cents per kilowatt hour
Yeah,
but
right.
You also know the delivery.
yes,
For
costs have
example,
gone
I
up.
have one invoice on my desk that I'm looking at right now. Your electric charge was $3,200. Your line and delivery charges are almost $7,600. So it's a $13,000 invoice. So you're paying more just to get the electricity than you're paying for the electricity.
Interesting.
Sooner or later, your solar will help pay it off.
Yeah, no delivery charge.
No, some of that, depending on when you've got your contract, some of the contracts, there are no delivery charges if you're self-sufficient.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Some of the newer contracts, that's another story. So,
Yeah.
Maybe there's a way too, Susan, that we can look in our own organization and see how we can save on heat and electricity.
Right,
I think you already have LED lighting through most of the districts.
we do.
Is that correct?
But the buildings are lit up like 24/7, and I have requested and asked about that, so.
They can go on timers. Like, there are ways. we
And then
can-
there's the, the community being able to access for the cars, the electricity. And I've heard in other towns that they actually have like a credit card scanner that they could use to pay for
Yes, they should.
those, so that it's not falling on the back of, the school or the town. So
Yeah,
there are ways that
we
we can
did-
do these things better.
We did bring that up last year, and there were some board members who were very concerned about the fact that there are cars parked at all the schools at night and weekends.
And during the
And-
day, they take up our spots during the
Yeah.
day.
So, whether someone had suggested we simply flip the breaker on those at night, but I don't know what our agreement was when we put those in with the state. We'd have to, all I know is the state paid for all those to be put in, but they're not paying the monthly bill.
No,
So
they're not, we are.
we need to see but the town does the same.
Yep.
As you know, all the town chargers, people are plugged in at all hours too. And again, we don't know exactly what those are costing us, but one more thing to look into.
And I'll take a look at from April to present, what's changed other than the full.
I just think that's a real
Okay.
concern for me, anyway.
And we'll look into ways where we can save ourselves.
Mike?
Yeah, I have several questions. I just want to go back to your original narrative. I just want to make sure I understand the first paragraph. We received notification of additional $352,859 for DOD impact aid. So I think we've established that it's not DOD supplemental, because that would go right to the school district.
The impact.
And then there's a third category, I think, which you're mentioning at the end of the second sentence, as well as the 13,000 will reduce the special education costs. So there's that other category.
Special ed category.
Yeah, so it's DOD impact aid for children with disabilities. And I think that goes to the town first, but that has to be ultimately legally has to be routed right to us, right?
All deposits go directly to the town. We don't physically receive the money. Okay.
The impact aid, I think we do, or
The DOD
DOD supplemental.
supplement.
impact supplemental.
Well, I think it gets to us,
It
but
gets to
Okay.
us,
directly, but it all goes through the town.
Yeah, normally
Everything goes
ACH
through the town.
deposits go to the town, and we direct how
Yep.
we're going to spend it.
Okay, so there's never been nothing contested about sending the DOD supplemental straight to the Board of Ed and the schools?
No.
And I think that's the same is true for say the 13,000, for instance, or other DOD impact aid for children with disabilities. It's
Well-
that larger
Well,
chunk?
that's not necessarily
No.
true.
Okay.
That's not actually true.
Yeah, no.
That's,
And even for the state money, it hasn't been true.
Yeah.
And but we've sent legislation and, the Tom Mooney results on that.
that's particularly rough to deny children with disabilities the funding that they're getting. And
Well, I mean, the argument can be made, the town does provide an overall budget.
But
And
these
this
are,
is a source of revenue toward that budget.
these are
so
excess funds that we've paid on behalf of,
Okay.
been outplaced
So-
and all.
There's,
Yeah.
So thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to go to, the object code summary? I just had I think 6 or 7 ones that I just wanted to ask about because I noticed they changed from June 6th. And I get that, as you say, it's a fluid situation. The one is number 32, tuition special education. So we're in better state here. More of a surplus is number 32, because before it was like 179,000, and that's gone up. Does that reflect a transfer from one of these funds, or is it just?
I'd have to look at every
Yeah.
transaction because,
What line were you on, Mike?
It's 32.
Row 32?
There was a surplus when last we looked at it in June 6th, and now it's gone up substantially,
I will
actually.
make this generic comment, there were probably 5, maybe 6 items that were over encumbered prior to
Okay.
me presenting this to you. We had to go back and make some corrections.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I'm not going to say this is over encumbered because they're still showing $371,000. And in terms of special ed tuition and things along that nature, that's where I've gotten burned in the past. Just historically, organizations will come out of the woodwork with purchase invoices that were not encumbered. Just an FYI. So this is one area that's a touchy subject with me, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Although I have to say, and give you credit, because we've had all outstanding items, we've called people and let them know. Ray talks about a process that he had in place where it was actually listed that if they submit a bill after a certain amount of time, that they didn't pay it. So I don't know if you can speak to that, but we have made those calls, reaching out, telling people, we're closing up, they need to get that bill in, so we won't have surprises.
One of the things that I did in the prior life was change our terms and conditions on the purchase order. Once they, and it would probably be published on the website, once they've accepted the purchase order, they've accepted these terms and conditions. One of which, after it went through legal, was, and I forgot if it was 60 or 90 days, but if it was submitted greater than, I'm pretty sure it was 60 days after our year-end close, we are no longer responsible for payment. You're going to eat the cost, basically. So, because historically, somebody will come out of the woodwork with a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, or $60,000 invoice for something that they did. And legally, you're obligated to it if your terms and conditions don't designate that. So,
Thank
it's
you.
one of the things I would encourage that we look at.
Thank you. And I know that comes in the heading transportation, insurance, communications, tuition. I will note that block of funding, there's a surplus. So last time I asked a lot of questions about transportation because there's a lot about the contract I don't understand or didn't understand. But with that block.
We received 2 unencumbered purchase orders for transportation today.
So. And then I want to move to number 40. It's facility maintenance supplies. Before, it was in a arrears or a deficit for like, say, 63,000. Now it's, what's that, like 165 deficit. So that's changed quite a bit. I was wondering if that's partially connected to the fact that on the drawdown estimates on the other part, that the last time we looked at it, there was like a 50K for a reduction in maintenance, and now that's been removed. And I thought maybe that was one of the things that you said we couldn't do.
That was one of the things we couldn't do. I mean, I needed to offset the credit to those lines with a debit somewhere. I had nowhere to debit it, so I deleted, that did not occur.
Yeah.
And with those,
Deleted it off the line.
with those property damages, we've been doing the repairs. I mean, we've had other people also coming in, but a lot of that has been influenced by these multiple property damages all throughout the year. Every month, we seem to have something.
And that's in that line 40,
And there-
because it's
some of that
facilities,
would be in
maintenance
that line.
supplies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you notice, I don't recall what the previous object code was on the encumbrance, but you'll notice the encumbrance is only $20,000 on that line. The line, on line 40, if you look at.
Yeah, oh, I see that, yeah.
So there's been most likely, there's been a big reduction in the encumbrance.
Yeah, I'd have to
Again,
find
I
that.
don't have the previous report in front of me.
And then my next question is about back up in the benefits category. It's number 11, Social Security and Medicare. I imagine there is a reason for this. So at June 6th, we had that estimate as a deficit of 169,000. Now it's, not quite doubled, but up, say, 40% to a deficit of 300,000.
And if you look at the encumbrance, that there was.
It's quite large.
For the payroll, basically through August, so we're carrying, that was not properly encumbered. That was one of the items we had to fix.
Okay.
Okay, because we're covering payroll.
Got it.
Many districts do a balloon check. In other words, this last payroll of this week, a balloon check would be done to cover the teachers and those that are getting paid on 26 weeks throughout the summer. We don't do that. We pay them throughout. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the processes that was requiring change. So we've encumbered that because it's against this year's fiscal budget. So
Okay.
that's why. But
Thank
there was
you.
an error in the encumbrance on that. As a matter of fact, there, as well as I believe the health insurance was errored as well. We fixed some of that.
Yeah.
And I know the salary lines from 1 through 6 were also in error.
Yeah, that's,
Those are
yeah.
much more accurate.
Yeah, those were my next questions. And the source of the errors were just
It's just over encumbrance, or we didn't encumber enough. But we reviewed, before I sent this out, we reviewed everything and we ran some separate reports internally, and we saw that the encumbrances they were just too high. I mean, if you take
Right.
the wages and let's say multiply it out by what the Social Security and Medicare should be, it was just far too high. It didn't balance.
Oh, okay, thank you, because that actually helps me, because I put a little smiley face on this one, because the number 3, the non-certified aides, on June 6th was showing a deficit estimated, as you said, then and now, of 413,000, or a little under that, and now the deficit is more like 94,000. And so that's quite a bit of change. And then
Right direction, at least.
the other one that was less so was the number 6, the custodial maintenance tax, when it was, actually, this is quite a big change too, because it went from a deficit of just over 74,000 to a surplus of 102,000. And so overall, and there's a change in the teaching line the other way, but overall, if you look at that number 8 summary, we, on June 6th, when we were looking at this more or less for the first time, we were seeing a deficit of, items 1 through 7 as $630,000. Now it's down to 268. So that's good to see. Of course, some other areas came up. I think actually the supplies came up, but so it's good to see that, and thank you for
We are
answering
ripping
that.
it apart. I mean, it's that time of year. Every transaction just about is being reviewed by, if not myself, everybody in the department. They're all working their tail off,
Right.
for lack of better terms, down there, trying to keep it straight. And we did make changes systemically with the way we're doing things. I mean, I want to see the full picture. We're making sure we're encumbering it all. My predecessors, maybe they didn't want to see the full picture on certain things, and then maybe their process was different than what I wanted to see. So you got two different eyes, two different ways of looking at things.
Right, different styles. My other question, I starred this one, I think I understand it, but I want to make sure it's just clear. On this page, when you come to the deficit of roughly $1.1 million, this does not reflect any of the drawdowns that we have approved or are in progress. That's the next page.
No.
So,
And if you look at the drawdown page, it doesn't, the top number does not match the 1.12 because we made that adjustment today to this. So this is the net difference between the 39,000.
right.
Okay.
And so those drawdowns, many of them approved already, that's going to help considerably, as you said.
Correct.
Okay. And then, I guess, this is just a question to everyone, I'm new on this. The town has contingency funds. We don't seem to.
No.
And I know these are big numbers, and it was shocking last time to see, being 1.2 or 1.1 million under, or over budget, but it is a 1%-ish part of the total operating budget. Is this something where, I know we'll talk about this later, where a non-lapsing fund could help with contingency? And then I guess my other question is, the town has a contingency fund. We're a part of the town. They can't hit their budget exactly every time. And oftentimes, and I know there are different quarter transfers, fourth quarter transfers, for instance, from, the general fund to an account, or the contingency to account. We don't, as a Board of Education, currently have those tools. So when we're going to the town and asking like this, this is something that's rare for us. I understand. But the town probably just does this with less fanfare, because it's the town council solving the town council's
They
budget
control the
problem.
money.
Whereas we have to go for an ask to the town council, and as we should, because it's the town's responsibility, as it is ours, as part of the town, to support education, fund the schools. Although I think it's important to say that as we work cooperatively with town council and the rest of the town, that still oversight rests firmly with the Board of Education and its school staff.
Just to let you know, this is the first time I've ever had to go back to a town to ask for additional funding in probably 20-plus years being actively involved, either as a board member or as a business manager. So it's highly unusual, to be honest with you. I don't know, Susan,
Ray, I have to say, when Mike Grenier first got here, and this was just months before I arrived, that's the first job he had to ask for $1.something million. And it was because of the way we operate, is that we use the health reserve. It's expected. It comes from the town office, business office to ours, that in order to get these 0.1, you saw we had a 0.5, 0.5% over a decade of increases when the inflation was 5% each year. So using that health reserve like that has been done, that caused it 10 years ago when he had to go back, and you see 10 years after, we're kind of in the same boat. But I do believe that some of, by having, this list of drawdowns, and looking for creative ways to solve this problem. It's interesting that that number 247,943 is about what we were saying, 250,000, when we first started having those property damages. It was also what we were going to rescue from the tutor, hour saving. And so that number really shows up as a number that, I'm hopeful that that's what, it'll be around that. I'm hopeful.
That's why we tried to be as accurate as we could with the encumbrances that we have. I mean, you need to see the right picture. I mean, I'm here temporarily, I'm like a pigeon flying over and whatever. I want to make sure when I leave.
I would call you a hawkeye, not a pigeon.
Jen has a question.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna recognize Jen and then
Ian.
So, couple of things.
Just bring it closer, Jen.
Oh, yeah. Couple of things, right? Like during your explanation from Mike's couple of questions. 2 additional encumbrances for bus, for purchase orders that were not recorded, breakdown in process, or maybe it wasn't enough. And if that were the case, should the number in the encumbered, should that have changed from like last period? That's not really important. That's just a question, right?
Change as a true payment instead of an encumbrance because we have to pay it this
Yep.
fiscal year.
But
There may be a direct pay because the bus was, and it's, again, it's just one of those things was, we ordered a bus, we got
The minute we ordered that bus, made that phone call, whatever, however we communicate, text,
somehow, some way, the purchase order wasn't entered.
it should have been.
Should have been, correct.
Should have been.
It does happen.
I think you were going to
It's
check
been
into
happening.
that because
It's
I
been
think it
happening
was
a lot.
script
But
from
now-
us.
That can happen with sports.
Holding that
Huh?
right now.
Can happen like with the sports team.
Okay, yeah.
This
It
time
could
of
be-
year, it happens more frequently than other times, but it's, we'll see what it.
But I think that was a
causes.
trip that the kids had funded, or that
I think it's
the grade level had funded. It's a student, yeah,
Student activity fund.
right. So that's what we have to check into.
Okay, yeah. The one that like the kids raise money for and, yep,
It still should require a purchase order.
Right.
correct.
So, having said that, we need to also put as part of those terms and conditions, no PO, no payment. Period. We're not obligated, it's not a legal contract. I don't care who, there's only several people that can authorize a purchase order or a payment or something like that.
Unless, I don't know the contract because I didn't read it, unless it's a master agreement and anything that comes in under that master agreement. But like I said, I don't know the
We
contract.
don't go by master agreement,
Okay.
we go by purchase orders.
Okay.
They have a master contract, but the contract requires a purchase order to move forward with the
Correct.
service.
Okay. And then, different,
Particularly when it comes to supply chain, because I spent 35 years in supply chain.
yeah. And then, different styles of how we encumber. That sort of got me. I know you're trying to, you had mentioned different styles. So I was like, yeah, I wrote it down because I freaked out. Because we shouldn't have different styles. There's like a way, and it should be consistent. So, like I said before, these are things that I am seeing that is systematically coming up. And I need you to help us fix it, or when we hire someone else, that whoever is on that committee, we need to ensure that this person will be consistent going forward. So I just wanted to point that out, because when you had said that as a response, different styles. I don't know what the person in front of you had.
It's different ways of looking at how you do it.
Yes, so that's why if we have a policy in-
Not policy,
or guidelines, desktop procedures,
it's a procedure.
okay, desktop procedures, guidelines, I don't care what it's called, we need to follow it.
Thank you, Jen. Ian?
I just want to thank my colleagues for asking a plethora of very articulated questions. You took a lot of stuff off my list, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate the business manager interim for all the work that you do. And I just want to echo Ms. White's statements on procedure. I'm overwhelmed by the sheer number of things that kind of seem to be, since the time I've been on the board, since December. We got sworn in, the shifting sands of like how we even look at things, or the numbers that we get. It's hard to keep track of what's being put where, and there's a number of times also where object codes were reclassified, and so as we, or something got moved from one object code to another before you got here.
I want to interject, and I don't mean to apologize. Normal process within public education sector. If there's a transfer required from, say, central office to one of the grammar schools, I need board approval to do that.
Right.
Okay, that's normal process. Object code to object code within the same parameter, let's say central office, we can do that. Now, I will highlight it that we did a transfer. But technically, I shouldn't need board approval to do that, because I'm moving it from object to object. The overall budget really didn't change, we just tried. Now, what I do, I won't do that transfer from object to object within the same program. And there's a reason for it. I want to know if I'm over budget or under budget. Did we do it right?
Right.
Last year when we created the budget. So if I budgeted $10,000 for our salary for little Johnny, was that salary budgeted correctly? And did we encumber it properly? And did we process properly? If not, if we were under budget on it, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. So, hopefully.
And that's
Right.
been past history too, right? That's been done.
Well, that's sort of what I'm getting at is, I think we as a board, in my opinion, and I think we have at least one referral out there that speaks to this, but we need to get a handle on how transfers occur, and also like how we track the budget throughout the year, so that we have we're able to determine red flags sooner. And, having a very consistent process. The procedure, whatever the procedure is, we need to research the best practices as far as the accounting goes, as what the best recommended procedure is for issuing, everything you said tonight, Ray, as far as like, putting into the contracts, no purchase order, no payment, an expiration date for submitting invoices. These things sound like very strong practices that help protect the district from surprises. Right. So I think that's the direction we need to go as a board. And as far as I can understand, my understanding of the way it works, we do have the authority to lean in that far if we need to, if we feel that there's an imperative to do so. And I think we're there. I may want to adjust that referral slightly to kind of broaden it some, to look at procedures. But also that ties into looking at a long-term business manager, which, we're going to be leaning on you a lot. I hope you're not already have your bags packed. We also, one of the other things I'm looking forward to leaning on you for is some insight and advice on software. As far as our accounting software, as has been noted over the past many months, the budget deliberations, we're incredibly out of date. It's hard to work with, it's hard to translate. It's hard to have multiple scenarios at play at once. The presentation, again, we're having the ad hoc budget procedure committee meeting this Thursday. We're going to start looking at the overall timeline. So I've asked the chair to help arrange for you to be there, to consult possibly.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go off on that tangent just yet. If it's not possible, then that's fine. We can work up a list of questions and we can kind of bounce it back another way. What's really been, one, I did also want to commend that it sounds like most of your communications with the town manager regarding the DOD impact aid and various other items are all being done via email?
Right now, yes.
Okay, good.
Now, I have met with John and Dee. That was about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. I gotta make sure I'm speaking into this.
Yep.
We had a very good conversation. There were certain things that they were looking for. And I was on a fact-finding mission, like, what do you need from us? I mean, we're here to work together. I'm not here to throw stones at them. I'm not here to take a heavy weight on my shoulders. We're here to get the year-end cleaned up, and we're here to help move forward. And if there are changes to be made, we'll make those changes. But, and we're slowly making systemic changes within the department down
Right.
there. So,
Right. Well, no, I just wanted to say that I think that's a great practice, and even if there are verbal conversations that occur, as far as like just trying to hash out an idea, brainstorm, I would ask and encourage that there be an email to follow up on those verbals, to like say, okay, so as per our conversation earlier today, I'm walking away with this, this, and this as my action items, just to get it on record that there is a clear understanding as to like what both parties are
we're on the same page.
walking away with, right? So definitely in favor of that and encourage that.
So far, I've had no issues working with the town.
Excellent.
They have a job to do, we have a job to do, and we're gonna work, we're gonna get to where we need to.
All right.
Make everybody happy, let's put it that way.
And as far as like the bus contract, I'm not sure if I saw it come through the email or not. Did we get a copy of that? Okay, I'll have to search and find that.
Yep.
And the fuel contract, is that something that could be shared with the board?
I can send them to you.
Yeah, just,
They're expiring in August, but I can send them to you.
I would just like to get familiar with, some of the nuts and bolts of like how these things look and operate, just for my own edification.
Same with Constellation, that expires in December, I believe.
Understood. But the one thing I really did want to kind of dive into or get a little more clarity on, we talked about a little bit at the June 6th meeting of a past practice of rolling over from one budget year to another. And past boards have done this. And now this year, it's an all stop, not happening. And so I'm just curious to know what documentation there is as far as communication of like that happening in the past, like what was it that enabled the board to do that in the past, and what changed that disables the board from doing that now. I'm not saying I'm in favor of doing it. I don't know. Really, honestly, that seems kind of, a little shaky to me to do that, because you want a clean budget year and a clean start to a new one. But if it was done in the past and now it's no longer available to us, what's different? What changed and why? Was there a change in law?
It's part of that audit, that annual audit process that we're waiting for the final report on.
Okay.
It's during that.
And,
Just to let you know, I've been told we may have it there tomorrow.
Yeah.
This was a communication from John, I believe, last week, but it has not appeared yet.
okay, and what was the average amount of this rollover from year to year? Any
Year,
sense of
I
that?
don't know. It's my understanding it was, what, 700 this year? Whatever those salaries were
Right.
that were permitted to roll
It
over.
was salaries, late bus.
Yeah, there were some late things that
Invoices.
came in. Yep.
The late things I can understand, putting it against the prior budget, not rolling it into the current budget. That's why the encumbrances are here.
Right,
So you can carry forward and pay out of last year.
Right.
Period 13.
You
Right.
accrued it. We accrued it. Yep.
So those are accrued expenses.
The question
So I
did
guess
come up
I'd
with
like
the
to-
auditor, and
Right.
it wasn't answered. You get a bus invoice 6 months late, for which there was no PO. Do you go to the town for a supplemental over that, or do you pay it out of the next year's? And many districts,
They pay it.
I pay it out of
Pay
the current year budget. So if it came
So-
in December of next year, this coming year, I would pay it out of the current year. I can't go back. Most operating systems, you can't go back and pay it out of the previous year. You've already filed your EFS, you've already, most districts are finished with their audit by now.
Right.
most districts have filed their audit with the state in December or January.
Right.
So you can,
Yeah.
I shouldn't go there, I know.
Yeah.
But in reality, though, that, there's nowhere to put it, so you have to pay it in the
Right.
current year.
Right. So,
Yeah, I guess I would also be curious just to get some kind of better historical understanding of like what was done in the past. You know, what were those amounts? What were the, you know, what were the POs for? Were they all properly purchased, ordered, or were they not? I don't know. It just seems, you know,
we go through an
It's a big change.
annual audit. Go through an annual audit. I've been personally back to 2018, and I'm only seeing deficiencies that are not related to the Board of Ed. Now, I have not gone back to 2000. I mean, you can dig, they're all online. Everything's online, you
Right.
can dig back through it. But I think right now, our focus is kind of getting this year,
Yep.
right.
you know, so.
Well, I guess I was looking to see if there's some sort of correlation in at least the amount as far as like what historically has been rolled over versus like, you know, where these, you know, what this is adding up to now. If that's, I mean, loosely speaking, I mean,
Again, I wasn't here, so I'm throwing a number that it was hearsay. I heard it was 600,000-700,000 range.
Right, because we
Right.
use DOD money to cover it.
Right, but that was covered, right.
okay.
So that, even though it hit the budget, it came out of DOD.
Right.
And how,
Which technically leaves less for the town on the DOD side, on that funding that comes in.
On the board side, yeah.
Yeah, on the board side, yep.
and if we had, say, some of these protections as far as an expiration date on submitting invoices and you know, this policy of no purchase order, no payment, if those were in place, would that prevent against like sort of those, you know,
It would help.
yeah, the fifth quarter charges?
Yeah.
Because
speak.
you would force your vendors, and internally, because internally, it would be a change in process and procedure.
And is this something that we could implement?
You could, but I would have legal take a look at it to make sure that it would be, that your template is proper.
Right, and that, would it, is this something we could do mid-contract? Say, because the bus contract we're still in the middle of.
You can make it do an
No.
addendum to the quote on the
Okay.
contract. That could be done. If they don't agree, you can always go out to bid again.
All right. And the fuel contract's coming up to an end, the electrical contract's coming up to an end, so we have an opportunity to renegotiate.
Yep.
and-
Those fuel contracts and electric contracts, I think we're joined at the hip with the town on some.
Yes.
of those.
Right, right.
So,
All right. That's about all for my list.
Thank you. I do want to point out that we do have a policy, it's actually state law, that transfers have to, and again, it's just one of those policies that we just take it out of the state law and put it in the policy book. And whether we put it in there or not, it's still the law. And that is that the transfers would have to be approved by the Board of Ed. And they have not been done. If they had been done, we wouldn't be seeing deficits in different line items. So obviously, money has not moved around, and the board has not approved any of
and
these
I
transfers.
will not move
Right,
department to department.
No.
Right.
Without your approval.
Right.
Because that's,
yeah, and nobody has
That's never
come
been
to
done.
us. Yeah,
That's never been done.
yeah, nobody's come to us to do that.
No.
So-
over the years, nobody's.
No, no, it just, because this is reflective of the true, the true expenses on the line items.
And right now, that's what I want to see.
Yeah,
Right.
I've
Well,
always wanted
yeah,
that.
just to clarify what I was talking about earlier, as far as like moving object codes, is more about having to do like, you know, there was talk about, we saw some, you know, in the proposed budget for 24, 25, there was like large balloons in some areas. And then there was talk about, oh, that was the phones, went from a grant to regular operating budget and various other things like that, where we're
That was
reclassifying
done
an
during the
expenditure.
budget process,
Right.
not mid-year.
Right, no, well, that's what I'm
Mid-year
just saying,
changes
is
would
like,
have to be approved by.
again, moving forward, and this will be like one of the things that the committee looks at is like, you know, ways to try to formalize what's operating budget, what's grant funded, and like, you know, try to keep the object codes more consistent so that, you know, we don't have lump.
Yeah, to
shifts
move
of
any of these around
classification.
right now
No,
wouldn't,
no, no.
wouldn't be able to budget for
I'm
it,
not-
so it wouldn't be a good idea.
No, I think we're not, that's not the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So I did want to thank you, Ray, for the ideas about the purchase order. I realize that in mid-contract, it's not going to be practical all the time. Also, you're going to be reaching a point where you're dealing with a vendor, and you're basically, you want to have an ongoing relationship with that vendor,
Oh, definitely.
but you can't say to them, we're not going to pay you because,
It's a two-way street.
yeah, so.
I've been there.
But,
So,
but definitely something that I think put them on notice that you want to get things in a
you
time.
want to make them aware
Yep.
that legally you're not responsible
Right.
if you don't have a PO.
Well, making
That's a
those,
legal document.
making those phone calls was really
That
essential.
helped a lot.
And-
We had
And,
a lot of.
and getting people to really submit.
And
Mike.
just to kind of just follow on that, though, I mean, I don't think it's about, I mean, we can interpret Robert Frost all day long, but, if you look at good fences make good neighbors, that one quote, it's good to have firm boundaries.
Oh, definitely.
And firm expectations.
Yep.
And if we're paying for a service, then I think we are well within our rights to say, like, look, you can't bill us 6 months after the fact.
Absolutely.
You have a responsibility to bill us timely because we have budget windows in which we need to operate. So I don't think it's out of line. I don't think it's hostile.
Oh, no.
I don't think it would cause a bad relationship. I think I think it's a
idea.
reasonable approach to like try to.
And I appreciate your bringing it to us, because it's something that after all these years,
Just another way to put some checks and balances in.
I thought it was a great idea when he told me. I said, let's get that going.
Yeah.
I thought it was good.
It's all legal.
Let's make those phone calls,
don't
let's
ask
do it.
Floyd.
Next year,
add it
after
to the list.
July 1st, all legal. Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
Mike?
Thank you. So I have a question about the Groton Utilities rate change, but before that, just in the course of conversation, I wanted to contribute. Being a new board member, I went back through the earlier board meetings, kind of working my way backwards and trying to figure out when the alarm start or the concerns started to be raised about FY24 going over. And as well as I can track it, the March 25th Board of Ed meeting, the business manager's report, there was no great concern raised. Of course, it was not through the year yet, but some things were spot on with last year. And that was sort of the quote that came up. And then the next month was April 22nd board meeting, and that's when the superintendent mentioned that we could be seeing for this FY24 year deficits, and for many of the same drivers that were brought up for the FY25 budget process, just that these factors were hitting us, hitting the Board of Ed and the schools this year, as well as projected into next year. So that switch between March 25th and April 22nd, to me, that's when it seemed to occur, at least in the meetings that I could watch. So I had a question about the Groton Utilities rate change. It seems like it's, you include, we haven't talked about that letter that was included for May 15th saying rate changes effect as of May 1st, 2024. It seems like it was not necessarily higher or lower, but usually things go higher. It's just a category shift from unmetered demand to small general service. I was wondering, I couldn't tell from that what the implications were for the school budget, either for FY24 or next year as well.
It looks like, if you take a look at it, your energy charge is about just under 10 cents. And then you've got your peak demand charge of 14 cents. So it looks like you've got a variable charge on there.
Yeah.
The way I'm reading it. I would probably call utilities and say, come on in and explain it to me. I received this as part of receiving it. I wanted to make the board aware. When I receive stuff like this, even as an interim, you're going to be aware of these types of changes. I mean, it affects your decision-making process, so I'm going to make you aware of it. Have I had a chance to call them in? No. Have I had a chance to review it with them? I have not. But to be pragmatic about it, I should call them in to get clarification, what exactly is going on. So if I'm reading it correctly, you're looking at a service charge of $35 this year. This is if we're subject not to the gross revenue tax, so I need to understand a little more exactly what makes us subject to the gross revenue tax as well. So these are different things that I need to understand with them. So I'd make a phone call tomorrow and clarify with you.
and this is nothing, this is outside we don't have the ability to change this. This is just the utilities saying.
Just give me an explanation.
Exactly.
Yeah, just explain.
Dean?
There's another phenomenon, and I hate to be the one to bring this one up, but there's another thing that to sort of look at from a higher altitude, and that's this. I can remember going back, this is well over 30 years, I can't believe it. One of my very early cases here in Connecticut involved a school district, small town, I will not name it. They wanted to renovate a couple of school buildings, the only school buildings they had, actually. And they put together a committee to look into it. And they proposed a budget of, I'm going to say $21 million, which sounds like a joke now, but in the late 80s, that was not considered a joke. The public wasn't going to go for it, so they chopped back the $21 million to $18.5 million. Good, fine, that's a better number, we like that one. Work gets underway. By the time the project's over, they are at 21 and over anyway. My point is, we engage in an exercise. We do this, the council does this as well. You can start from the point of view and say, okay, well, what are we going to need to spend next year, and just look at it that way. But you also temper that with a concern. What's this going to look like? Can we do better with the numbers? And I think there may be a tendency sometimes to go in a little on the skinny side with some very optimistic numbers. We won't call them that. We'll say we're being realistic. But there is an effort expended, especially in the Board of Education, to come in as low as possible so that we don't get slapped around by the other two bodies. We haven't been able to do that, especially the last couple of years. But I think sometimes what happens is we go in a little too skinny, and then expenses are a little higher than we thought. Oops, we're over budget. In other words, it's quite possible had we had a more realistic budget, some of the numbers might not be so out of kilter, but the realistic budget might not have passed muster at the time. Just something to bear in mind.
Okay. Anything else to do with the object code summary or Director of Finance? Do we have a report on facilities?
No, and I don't think Sam is online, is he? Okay.
Not anymore.
All right.
Just a quick question then, maybe the superintendent can help with this. I was going to ask Sam what the progress is on the middle school scoreboard. He said that a letter had been sent to the
I don't have an answer
manager.
for you, but I'll find one and I'll get it to you.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could get a copy of that letter too, I'd just like to
Yeah.
see what it said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next, we have committee reports. Would you like to give policy again?
Sure.
Schulman is present. I know we have the fruits of your labor here.
Do you need me for the
No, I want you to get on the road because you
Yeah.
have a long drive and you'll be back first thing in the morning helping us problem solve, so thank you.
I'll be here before you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you probably will.
Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome. And I apologize for the interruption. I didn't,
No worries. No worries.
oh, by the way, this guy does nice work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, in policy, we, forgive me, I don't have notes prepared because I wasn't aware that Mr. Schulman wasn't going to be here. But,
Well, basically,
I think all
most
our
of the rest of the
policies are
meeting is
listed.
the fruits of
Yeah.
your
yeah.
labor.
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not going to belabor the point of giving a report. We looked at a lot of policy, we talked about it, made some adjustments, and we brought some stuff back
Yep.
to talk about here. So let's get to it.
Thanks.
We're going to get deep into it in a few minutes. Curriculum.
We met on June 6th, I'm sorry, June 3rd, and we had an update on the ECE classes at Fitch High School and the EMT and nursing classes at Fitch. And there was a discussion in terms of the work completed on world language.
Thank you. Finance and facilities.
We should have had a meeting, we did not, because we did not have information available at the time
Okay.
to chew over.
Sure. All right. Learn, Bev has stepped out We'll see if she comes back, if she wants to give a report. Athletic Fields, did they meet since our last meeting?
No, the May meeting was canceled, but June meeting is scheduled for the 19th.
Okay.
And I just got the invite for Zoom and from Mark Berry today, so it looks like it is happening. So I'll have a report next time.
Any progress on changing status to more of a voting?
No, that was no, that we didn't discuss that yet. I was going to bring that up in this meeting.
Trails and Library would be Mr. Schulman. He's not here. So next will be the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and enacted by one motion. Points of clarification will be allowed, so I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a first?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I don't know, I've got a couple edits for the minutes. I don't know when
As
we
do
do
I.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
So at this point, we can discuss any changes you want to make.
All right, thank you. So I've got a couple suggested changes for the May 28, 2024 Board of Education regular meeting minutes. It is on page 3 under, actually there are two under, on page 3 on item number 7, committee reports. The first one, the easiest one to explain, is the library committee. It's the last of the 4 bullet points. The second to last line says, well, actually, the sentence says, they will be jumping in on healthy cooking matters in June, semicolon, giving a garden where people will be able to plant 300 plants. It's Giving Gardens. I think that's the name of it. So it's not giving a garden, it's just Giving Gardens.
That's it.
And it's gardens, plural. And so that was one. In that same item, that same 7 committee reports, item D was the State Council on Educational Opportunities for Military Children. The first part of that sentence, I think, it's Dr. Ackerman reported that there is a problem with all states in making decisions. I think that just, it gets a little cryptic just from condensing down what you said. And I think it might be better to say Dr. Ackerman reported that there is a problem with all states going into a military compact, as that was discussed. I mean, I'm sure that all states making decisions is a problem in general too, but I want to make a little specific.
It's actually not that they had a problem going into the compact, it's that they want to make changes about the compact
Yeah.
state by state.
Right.
That's the problem.
You can't have,
And then it's not a
yeah.
compact.
That's not a-
And,
So we'll go back and listen to that just to make sure it's accurate.
and then that's it for me, actually. For that meeting, I have something from the June 6th meeting.
All right. For the May 28th meeting, I just wanted to make a note that number 1, comments from citizens. It's Miss Ellen Safransky, no T, so it's Sefrasky. And number 3, it's not Mr. John Amboise, it's Jean-Claude. JEAN-CLAUDE. And then also for response to comments from citizens, I was hoping that my the comment where that reflects what I said could have included something that I did note that one of the things I was saying to the moderator was that, you know, the board had already acknowledged a number of the concerns that were identified and that we're already working on addressing a lot of those concerns that have been brought forth by the RTM and the council.
Again, I think that's one of those things we should listen to that.
Joan
Capture
usually
it.
does listen.
Yeah, you know, someone just capture that essence is
So
because
say that again. You acknowledged
that I would.
what?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and listen to it myself, but I remember trying to say, I said something to the effect of that the board had, during our budget deliberations, identified a number of the concerns that have been brought forth by the RTM and the council, both in these inquiries that have been sent to us, and that we're already working on addressing a number of those.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds like you, too.
All right.
And
You had something for June 6th?
yeah, June 6th is just a typo. It's a second page. It's extra. It's a repeated phrase. It's on our motion to amend the motion to approve the Board of Education, et cetera, on the second to last line of that, it says to offset FY24 remaining expenses and to help restore the remaining expenses and to help restore the healthcare corridor and reserve. Admittedly, it took me 3 tries to even try to get that right,
Right.
saying it, but
Yeah.
we need to remove the first and to help restore the remaining expenses.
Right.
So,
Good eye.
Oh, we did that was doubled up.
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
that happens.
So,
I'm sorry, should there be, to the extent we're making changes, there should be a formal vote, a motion and a vote on that.
so,
Can you vote,
would you like to move?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I vote to the extent that, well, I vote, because I know that there's.
Approve as amended?
Yeah, no, there are some things that were pointed out that we're clear on, and other things where we're gonna go back to the tape, so to speak. So I move that we make the change, make the edits that we're accepting now. I didn't keep track of them, but the other ones that,
Would you say that again, Dean?
I'm not on point today.
Approved as amended, and
What I'm trying to remember is, we have a motion to accept the minutes. So am I making a motion? Am I amending something? I move we accept the edits that were presented.
Second.
Here, a second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And so now, the motion will be on accepting the minutes as amended. All
There
in
you go.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
okay, got it.
Abstentions? So that passes. I'd like to thank Linda Johansson, who has donated $3,000 to Groton Public Schools Food Services Department to be applied to the district's lunch debt.
I think this is a second donation she has given.
Yes.
Another 2,000, so she's donated over $5,000.
Yes. So we thank her, and we also thank the Groton Open Space Association, which has donated $2,584 to the district to offset transportation costs for the field trips to the GOSA properties that occurred this year. So thank you to everyone. So now we move on to old business. Ian, would you like to read the motion for number 1?
Sure. Make a motion to approve policy P5141.5, suicide prevention / intervention as a second reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Whitney. Any discussion on this? I know this is our second reading, so after this, it'll become policy.
I would say that, I think it's been pretty thoroughly vetted at this point. Added a number of things based on our last conversation. And I don't see, but I'd be curious to hear. I would just encourage anyone that, has any objections to, please speak now.
So I know this has gone back and forth several
Yes,
times. I think
it
the highlight of this amendment, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we have inserted bullying,
Yes.
which was not actually in the original language for some reason. However, it also now lists a reference to 5131.911 bullying, so it kind of ties it together with
does.
the other
Right.
policy. I think that was the major.
That was the major
Right.
look for.
And that was like an example of a negative impact from social and/or cultural factors. that we had also
We
put in
talked
there
about
last
social
time.
media
Yeah.
as a conduit of that,
Yep.
and that can be a form,
Yep.
serious bullying.
So I think that's, broad with a specific example. I think, I feel like
Yep.
that concern's been pretty well addressed.
And I know policy has looked at this maybe 3 times. I know
Maybe
that-
4 or 5.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work on this, and I know it's very important.
Yeah, it is
So,
important.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve policy P5141.5, suicide prevention intervention as a second reading, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes? I'm sorry. Abstention?
Yes.
Okay, so Dean abstains. Dean, would you like to read the motion for number 2?
Move to approve policy P3542.43, food service charging policy as a second reading.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Thomas.
Second, Thomas. Any discussion on this? Again, this is a second reading.
I have a lot of things for Erica, such as just things like apostrophes in the wrong place and things that aren't a sentence and other things just like that, but they're all
Did those go
noted
in?
I'm
for the
sorry.
Did those go in for the first reading? Or this
Well, these are
came
just
up?
these are just typos.
Well,
You can correct those here if they're typos.
is it a lot that we can't correct it here and get it amended?
Just, yeah, there are just a lot of things that are just, like,
So I just would say that one thing that Ernie did tell us was that the language was really important, that it stayed the same, but of course, if you see anything with punctuation and that kind of thing, we can definitely talk to Erica about, but as far as changing language, this is really,
nothing like
okay,
that.
all right.
It's just like a comma out of place, stuff like that.
The only punctuation I'd be interested in is the type of let's eat grandma, that kind of thing.
I'm sorry. Oh, no,
Let's
no,
eat
no.
grandma, right,
No,
where a
yeah.
missing comma actually makes a difference in the meaning, yeah.
No, it's stuff like,
Okay.
it should be semicolon and however, comma.
Yeah. So I actually noticed like kind of voice changes, but I'm okay with it. There are a couple places, like the account is at no cost charge to you, however. But if we want to leave the to you, that's fine. There's a you later on. But one part that I didn't see in here is any mention of being able to pay at the schools or at food services. And I just thought that it would be very worthwhile to add a sentence for that. And it would be right above, it's in the paragraph right above the line that says free and reduced applications are available for any families who would like to apply. Just right above that, this is that paragraph talking about
Where are you?
middle of the
Orient me.
page, first page, to view account transactions
Yep.
or receive a low balance alert, you may sign up for now School Cafe Parent Portal app. So this is all about paying electronically, and right after that, I'd just like to say it is also possible to pay at the school lunch counters and at food services, the food services office. Just
I feel
add
like we
that.
discussed that, don't you remember?
We
Yeah.
had talked about it, just didn't make it in, which is.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there were a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
do remember we
changes.
talked
This
about
is quite improved, so.
So, do you want to send it back?
I don't know if we can improve it with just that change.
There's a couple paragraphs down that says pay directly through kitchen.
Where?
Is that what you're talking about?
Where does it
Adults are
say?
not permitted to charge meals at any. Or is that just talking about adults?
It is, yeah, it's talking about the adults, like, just the fact that they need to know that you can still send in your envelope with what it used to be $2.50, but it's more now, probably 3-something, but.
I don't know that it necessarily has to go back to the policy committee, and if we know what
No.
the small edits are, changes, if we
As
can all
amended.
agree on them, then let's just make those here.
Okay. If someone would like to propose the amended motion.
So I propose an amendment to the food service charging policy, and I'd like to insert the sentence, it is also possible to pay in person at school cafeterias and the food services office.
Where would you place that?
And I would place that right after the sentence that says the emails are based on the email address entered into the Power School primary contact.
Got it.
Do I have a second on the amendment?
Second, Thomas.
Okay. So, any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment as stated by Mr. Whitney, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So now we will move to approve policy P 3542.43, food service charging policy, as amended, as a second reading. Any more discussion on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so that passes. Let's see, Adrian, would you like to read item 3?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve policy P3313.1, local purchasing, as a second reading.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Whitney. Any discussion on this?
Yeah. At the last word, and I apologize if we already talked about this, but the last word, it says terms are equal when choosing local purchasing. I'm wondering if we can change that wording to comparable or something, because equal would make it that it's just too definitive that the two contracts would have to be exactly the same. Whereas if one contract might have a benefit in one place, but something else at a different place, and maybe the local person will deliver more consistently, so there's a better reason. So even though the local person might be slightly more expensive, maybe there's a reason for that. So I feel by just making that word, a little bit more fluid, that it might work well. So comparable would be the word, unless, we'll let Dean weigh in on it.
Well, do we have a second so we can start discussion?
Second.
Oh,
Seconded
sorry.
by Whitney, and
I
then,
thought we had it with, I'm sorry, I thought we had a second. I like the proposed change, but I would point out that comparable then takes you in the other direction, which is it's maybe perhaps not definitive enough. So comparable would be in the eyes of the beholder. If we're comfortable with that, then let's do that. I just wanted to point that out.
do we know, did this come directly? I see there's a legal reference here.
This
but did
goes back to
come-
1995. It's one of those oldies but goodies, and we needed to change it, but
Yep.
we kind of just kept it the way it was.
Yeah, but that doesn't, that statute does not actually spell this out.
That's what I'm wondering, about,
Hours
legal
of-
reference. That
Hours of school districts in general.
It does ask us to look at policy 3323 bidding. Right, it does reference that.
Yeah, it does do that.
We have that policy in front of us to look at. I don't have a copy.
I don't.
Just want to make sure there isn't a conflict between
it-
this and that. I'm required to go out to bid, but we're also allowed to say, yeah, you're local, so even though you're more expensive, we'll take you.
Right. So is this something that should go back? Policy just to compare?
Yeah.
I know
mean-
I asked for a CABE policy, but I don't think there was anything more updated for some reason.
It's a question of fairness, and not just fairness as a nebulous concept, but fairness for the bidders. You don't want a situation where somebody comes in is not chosen, they're not local, they'll say, hey, wait a minute, this is the basis on which I submitted a bid for this rather lucrative contract, thank you very much, that I need for my family, and you decided to just say, even though you're the low bidder, we like the other guy, even though he's a little more expensive, because he's local. You should have told me that was a factor, and can it be a factor? Yeah, you don't want a problem there.
I mean, it does say we do favor the local vendor.
Right. But then you ask people to submit bids, and so you may have a local vendor, you may have a local vendor and a non-local vendor, and then the non-local vendor loses out, even though they're the low bidder, because you said the low bidder wins. And then what happens?
It says this policy should not be construed to require competitive bidding.
To require competitive, when do we require competitive bidding? Under what circumstances?
I think
Under all
that's
circumstances? or-
policy 3323 bidding.
Right.
So we kind of have to look at that. So I'm wondering if that's something, we might just want to go back and,
Okay.
So this is 3.3, I got it pulled up here on the website. So, you want to start at the top?
This may be something that needs more
Attention.
Yeah.
attention at the policy.
I mean, maybe we should refer it back to policy and actually do a compare and contrast to 3.323, because this is actually, it's not a short one. So the details we may be looking for are maybe in here.
right. Yeah, and I mean, it's not, time is not of the essence on this
No,
policy.
no.
Right.
So
This is,
I think we
it
want to get,
it
we
lasted
want to get
since
it right.
1995.
Yeah.
So another month is not going to harm us
Right.
to get it right.
Right, and also I think it would be worthwhile to consider how this might, are union companies a thing to consider as well?
You might want to
Yeah.
just review that entire bidding
Right,
policy in
yeah.
conjunction with this.
So yeah, if we could send it back to
What
policy.
year was that?
That was more recent.
Okay,
Revised 2016 and then 2020,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
Jen?
Before we do, should we define local?
Oh, you might.
Radius,
Or
Yeah.
southeastern, or whatever it may
New
be.
London County,
Towns or-
yeah.
Yeah, it's something to consider. Yeah, definitions
So-
are important.
If we bring it back, we
So-
should consider that.
So do you want to withdraw your motion?
Yes, I would like to withdraw my motion. How do I read that?
Actually, you're going to withdraw your amendment, and you're going to withdraw your second. and
I
he's
w-
gonna withdraw
Yeah, I
your
was
motion.
second on that.
Oh, all right.
I think,
I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to withdraw my amendment to change the last word equal
Okay.
comparable.
You're withdrawing.
I withdraw my second, yeah.
And then you withdraw your initial
Then I
motion?
would like to withdraw the initial motion for policy P3313.1.
Okay.
And I think I was second on that. I withdraw that as well.
Okay.
So-
So we'll send that back to committee for further review and maybe even bring in the bidding policy. Let's see. Jen, would you like to read the motion for number 4?
Motion to approve policy P5112.2, admission requirements for Groton residents as a second reading.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. And any discussion on this? I know there was a change with regard to documents.
So we had used passport, and we labored over that, but there were a lot of other different forms that come from the state, federal, or other government-issued forms, especially having military children. So we liked that phrase better than just passport. So it was really about this chart, more or less, and it came to us through my enrollment team, my, registrar, when they are doing the actual processing and implementation, saying that that just needed to be clear, so that we gave families lots of different opportunities. They only have to produce one of these documents to prove child's age, but we gave them, different types that they could use. I think that was it,
Okay.
unless anybody else has a better memory. At least this last go-round.
I thought we were gonna end up with Z charts, I don't recall.
Yeah, it was getting too complicated. Then we,
Too
yeah, oh,
complicated?
yeah. So it kept this much simpler. Pick one of these.
Are you raising your,
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No.
it's like being in an auction with
But this is one that, this is
You
one
just
that
bought
we
it.
do need to move forward because it's that time of year.
Right. Okay. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none. So all those in favor of the motion to approve policy P5112.2, admission requirements for Groton residents as a second reading? One, two, three. Yeah, we saw the quorum. Please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? That passes. Mike, would you like to read the motion for number 5?
I move to approve bylaw 9324, meeting conduct and parliamentary procedures, as a second reading.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We're going into, yeah, we're just discussing bylaw 9324. So,
5112 went through?
yes.
All right, very good. All right,
So any
where are we?
discussion on that?
We're in discussion?
Yeah, we had a second.
Okay.
Now we're just at discussion. I know this has also been in policy a couple times.
So yeah, I think we're in a pretty good place with this one. You know, we changed the word to, from ensure to endeavor. But the board will endeavor to record all regular committee of the whole and committee meetings. Oh, well, there's a typo.
Yeah, why do we record twice?
I think that's a holdover.
Okay, should I take
The
it
old, yeah, are recorded should be eliminated.
Okay,
So,
got it.
will endeavor to record all regular committee of the whole and committee meetings, comma, excluding any portion of any meeting that is an executive session, comma, and to post such recordings, oops,
Oh.
get rid of are posted,
On the district's.
on the
so I'm
district's
keeping- yeah.
online video content channel or internet website, and made available for the public to hear, view, and copy.
It's a long sentence.
It is.
It's Proustian.
Huh?
It's a Proustian sentence.
I was thinking Goethe.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, there you go. So,
I'll take Proustian.
I guess that's an amendment. So you're proposing that we amend it. Is there a second to that?
Yeah, but he's considering whether there's another amendment.
Yeah, you picked up on that.
All right.
The force is strong with you.
Just wait a minute.
How about if we just make a final sentence, these will be made available for the public to hear, view, and copy, and then you at least shorten it a little bit.
Yep, that's a possibility. I was also thinking of maybe changing "and" to, into the words "to be." To be made available, or to be available for the public.
Or not.
Don't go there, man. Yeah, so I would, actually, I'll make an amendment, I'll make a motion to amend, to remove "are recorded," "are posted," and not replace them with any other words. And then to delete "and made," and replace it with "to be available for the public to hear, view, and copy."
Can I make a quick thing that we just said, and I'll let you add it if you want, a comma after meetings on that first line there? So before the deletion of the are
Yes.
recorded?
Yes.
Oh, well, if you delete "are recorded," just leave the comma there.
Right.
Oh.
And there is a
All right.
comma
Yep.
there, yeah.
There was
Never
a
mind.
comma.
All right, sorry.
So you don't want to make a separate sentence? These will be made available? Or to be made, or how did you say that?
I just took out "and made" and replaced it with "to be."
I'm fine.
Yeah, that's basically the to be, et cetera, it basically states the purpose of posting it
Right.
Right.
online. You don't even need that sentence, but, I mean, that phrase, but it's there already, so
Right.
that works grammatically.
And that goes back to one of the state laws that I used as inspiration for this. They had a phrase in there that had those three magic words: hear, view, and copy.
Nice. All right, so do I have a second on the amendment?
Second.
All right. So, all in favor of the amendment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So now, is there any further discussion on the main motion? And if not, we're taking a vote to approve bylaw 9324, meeting conduct and parliamentary procedures as a second reading. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes. And just by complete coincidence, would Ian please read item 1 under new business?
All right. I'll make a motion to approve policy P3171.1, non-lapsing reserve account for educational or capital expenditures as a first reading.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
Well, this has been
Did a yeoman's task in getting this together, given that it just passed the legislature in May?
in May, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's been a long gestating issue, first brought up by, Councilor Bordelon way back when, many years ago on the council, about the idea of trying to set up a non-lapsing fund for the Board of Education. And at the time, of course, it had to be done in conjunction with the town council. And so a lot of the previous drafts, and I thank the chair of the Finance Facilities Committee for allowing me to speak on it back in April. And I was processing a draft based on the two-headed version. And then when the law came through in May, removing the requirement of it coming through the town council, we accelerated our process through policy, and I was able to go through the draft and adjust it so that it reflected that new reality. And we had a very efficient meeting as far as the policy committee went. We actually edited the document live on the screen, and we're able to crunch a lot of words in a short amount of time. So I think we're in a pretty good place, and I'm most curious to hear everyone's reaction to this.
Now we just need money to put into it.
Yeah. That's coming next year.
Fingers crossed.
Well, actually, to that point, I mean, earlier in the meeting, you were talking about how there's sometimes a pressure to present a skinny budget. And, I think, and then also, as Mr. Whitney noted, the town has a contingency fund, but that they can readily access without much, without much contention. It's, obviously would always be part of a public meeting. There's a lot in this policy about everything going through a proper procedure and public meetings and public deliberation, board approval. But again, it just allows the school district to operate its own budget like we do in our households, as far as when you happen to have, some efficiencies, you have a little bit of a reserve, you can kind of tuck that away and start building towards, known quantities, known capital improvement projects. And one of them, we have a long list of capital improvement projects that have been sitting on the shelf for quite some time. And I think, adopting a policy such as this would empower the board to take a little more control over how we manage our money.
The June 30th date, is that in the law? I haven't read the law. It just seems tight.
Yeah, I
The
haven't found
superintendent has
anything.
to come to us by June 30th with what she wants to, when we don't even know really.
I think we, oh, yeah, okay, let's see.
It's like, the superintendent or designee must notify the board by June 30th, and the board approves no later than September 30th. The problem is, we've found out that
Sometimes things roll in.
Well, I think if my memory serves, the conversation that we had with Ray, and he was saying that it wouldn't be a firm, it would be basically an approximation of what you think would be reasonable, but it would not be approved until September 30th. So that would give us some time to clear out the audits and make sure everything is justified.
Yeah.
And then that's when it would become real, and the number could, change as the situation, is resolved. So the 30th would just be an approximate, best guess estimate, or best calculated estimate, I should say. No guessing.
No guessing
right.
allowed. Check and double check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder how much those dates are stated by law.
Well, I didn't find anything. I mean, a number of these, I don't know about as far as like the current law now because of May 16th. I didn't come across anything that set it firm that you had to do it this way. The policies that I used as reference to build this were drawn from the two-headed beast model. So
Oh, I see.
there was a certain pressure for a fiscal year.
Right.
Which I also, I kind of find, I feel like that's a good threshold to set, right? But again, like, it wouldn't become final until you've had some months to clear that out and confirm.
It certainly would have helped us with all these property damages going through this year.
Yeah.
We could have taken care of that on our own.
Yeah.
Adrian?
Yeah, and I just wanted to state that we've all heard, like, in government line items, spend your budget, otherwise you won't get it next year. And I think as a little bit more transparency, and this might make the taxpayers of Groton understand that we're not spending money just because we have to spend money, because now there's an actual incentive for the board to not just spend because the year is coming to an end. And I don't want to say that we've ever done that, but we've all heard of things like in the federal government or something like that where that might happen. So this policy will, assuming that we have money to put in it at some point, it will benefit the taxpayer by just alleviating that concern.
Yep. Agreed.
I think Jen's next.
Jen, and then Dean.
Just a question, because I don't know, if we approve this, does the RTM need to approve it, because it's financial sort of related?
From everything I've read in the state law, no.
Okay.
Because basically this, so in the background, I think I sent an article or two around to the, about a month or so ago. If not, I'll send it again. But Pullman and Conley did a great write-up on this, and basically a lot of the testimony before the legislature in favor of this was coming from a number of boards of ed across the state that had the two-headed beast set up, and they were running into roadblocks where the financial oversight body was whether it was a board of finance or a town council or an RTM or a selectman would not. Or basically, there's a case. There's a lot of caseload demonstrating that they were not allowing the money to move back into the Board of Ed. Like, once it got into that non-lapsing fund, then it couldn't get released. And the Board of Ed was constantly petitioning, saying, various boards of ed were petitioning. So it became more of a hindrance. So the law was written in a way to say, no, like, the Board of Ed is responsible for this account, and, best practices were to set it up and where nothing goes out of it without board approval, right? So any movement out of that account must come through the board, properly announced process, yeah.
And if I remember from a prior meeting, only go forward basis, right? We can't go retroactive for the amounts that we're looking to potentially fund. Or can we? I don't know.
I,
I don't know, I'd like to remember.
yeah, I think that might be
Okay.
crossing two different streams of conversation. But as far as I know, like, my understanding of it is that anything that is excess, to a year's expenditures, like say, we end up with, $150,000, like, we did better, like the solar, helped save us on electricity, and we have an extra $150,000, we don't have to return to the town, we put that in this reserve fund. And then, we could look at, like that would have, covered our CIP this year, like something like that. So it's for that sort of approach. Now, if there's the monies that are coming back into the Board of Ed budget that creates an excess, well, then that also would qualify, in my opinion. Sure. If I could just make a quick request, is there a way we could project this up on the screen for, because I know this is a brand-new policy, so I'm not sure if anyone at home might want to get a look at it on
We have
screen.
it, do you have it, Clint?
I got it.
Dean, and then Mike.
Yeah, I've been flipping through the public act just to see which particular section this covers, just to see if the language jibes. I haven't run into it yet. I wanted to point a couple of things out. One is regarding the dates, June 30th to September 30th. I'm okay with the concept of a request being a little fuzzy, because this would presume, whether this is in the statute or not, or whether it's authorized, not authorized, but if you look at, say, super comes to us by June 30th, board approval no later than September 30th, the implication is that there's going to be 3 months' worth of discussion over this thing. So I think it's already planned that the number coming in other words, we're not stuck with, she's got to know exactly what the number is, and that number is the only one we can discuss.
Right.
I think
Okay, good point.
that's built into this one.
Good point, okay.
The other question that I have is, for it's an observation really, is this presumes that we actually have the cash, not just on paper, but literally, because what would stop the town from saying, oh, well, so you're not spending as much as you thought, then you're not going to be appropriating. In other words, if the town appropriates only as much as we need, we'll never actually have any excess cash to fund the account. So what would this be? Would this be we know you're holding the money, but can we have our excess, please? In other words, it's going to be an ask of the town anyway. I'm not sure of the mechanics.
Well, other people have done this before us.
Right.
There's lots of other districts who are already doing.
Well, before, this had been, as he said, the two-headed thing. And either you have cooperation of the other body or you don't. This is meant to ameliorate that. I'm just wondering, does the actual mechanics of cash flow
Right.
help? Does it actually work here?
My understanding is that it's basically designed to catch windfalls. Should there be efficiencies or unexpected funds, something for whatever reason is not required to be spent. Like something, fell off, like we didn't have to spend the money on some improvement somewhere, or, tuitions somehow, like, there's a windfall of some kind, or an unexpected efficiency within the budget, and there was some extra money left at the end of the year.
If we were actually given $100,000 and we only had to spend $80,000 because we saved $20,000, we could say, well, that's $20,000 literally in our pocket that goes into this fund.
Right.
But if we were going to be spending $100,000, but we only spent $80,000 because of the efficiency, the town could say, well, here's your $80,000. Where's the other $20,000?
Right.
That's not in our pocket. That's a claim against the town, basically.
Perhaps
And
that's.
you're back in the same position as the two-headed situation.
Well, that I would add that, I suggest we add that to the list of the things we need to talk to the attorney about.
Yes.
As far as getting a more detailed, I mean, that's a great point, and I think that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
So are we thinking of sending it to Floyd? Is that what you were saying?
I think we need some guidance. I'm particularly concerned about the dates and that sort of thing, but I'm going to recognize Mike, and then I think Adrian.
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
I misread you.
I
Yeah.
Keep looking up.
You keep buying things.
Thanks for constructing this policy. I think it'll be very useful new tool for school systems. My question was, is there any other way for funds to go into this account besides surplus at the end of the year?
Big sales.
Like, for instance, could the town, having gotten excess of education-related impact funds, just decide to put it in this non-lapsing fund? Because I would assume it would gain interest just as theirs would.
I believe there's no real restriction on where the money, like how the money could end up in the account. But again, I would defer to the attorney.
Yeah.
I mean, I did what I could as an English major, and you know, someone who's been, you know, kind of steeped in a lot of this text for quite some time. But like, I am not an attorney, and I've read through the 24-45. I've made my best assessment of it. But yeah, I think, you know, for a question like that, I definitely would want to have the attorney to weigh in on, to be sure that we're on firm ground. But I would like to believe that, you know, anything that would, you know, like the special ed excess revenue would be a thing that that moving forward could be a thing that, you know, maybe ends up there, right?
Right, and so if it is possible, then we could adjust the wording to open that up. But I think the 2%, the amount shall not exceed 2% of the amount appropriated to the board in the fiscal year. I think that's just through our one mechanism that you're describing of transfer, or can the account not get above 2% of?
Oh, there's no.
That's the
There's
infusion
no
of
limit
funds.
on the size the account can become, other than any limits that we would want to impose. Legally, the amount of deposit that could be put in any fiscal year, that was stated in the law to be 2% cap
Per year.
of the appropriated budget of the previous year.
Right, which would be quite a bit.
Right.
And then my other, you mentioned using this for CIPs, capital improvement projects. I'd kind of, I know that's not in this policy, but I'd caution against that practice, because that's sort of taking a certain responsibility of the town overall to improve its capital and spend a certain percent of funds each year on doing that, and kind of putting that back on us, right? Actually, if you look at how much CIPs the town that we approve for the school system each year, in terms of percent of budget, in terms of percent of capital, it's very low for the schools, very, very low. So that this is a useful tool, but the way to get more CIPs is to have the town kind of live up to, you know, improving our capital of the schools, as they have with the bonding projects too, for sure.
Yep.
So because this is a policy, and this is a first reading, you know, by passing it tonight, we start the process, and then it's obviously going to come back for a second. And we can make any changes.
We'll have time to.
Yeah, we can make any changes in between, anything that you discover.
So what would be the procedure to have the attorney vet it?
Send it to him.
I'm just going to send it to him.
And could I be CC'd on that?
And I do want to know if, I mean, I'm reading this, that time is of the essence, that it would have to be, second reading would have to be before June 30th, if that's the operative date here.
Well, I haven't.
I don't know.
One,
It's
for
one
one,
of the
I don't
questions
think.
I would ask him.
Yeah, that's true. But that was just my initial assessment of, like, I think it would be cleaner if we could get it done before July 1 to have it in place for the next fiscal year. But I didn't find anything in the law, you know, that I read, that I could understand to say that if we passed it in the middle of a fiscal year, it would not be active for that fiscal year.
Lloyd that question when
So that'd be another question I'd have for him.
It didn't even become law until May. I mean, so
Right.
not everybody has had a chance to do two.
No, in fact, we may be well ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
yeah.
Thanks to you, Ian,
Thank you, Ian.
for pushing
Did
this
a lot of
early.
homework.
Thanks to Councilor Bordelon for bringing it up way back when.
Oh, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was wondering if this could be passed along to CABE as sort of a model policy, or a working model policy.
They haven't issued
haven't
one
even
yet, right?
crafted.
Yeah.
I don't think they've issued one.
Oh, you know, do we have a CABE
Maybe we should
liaison?
ask CABE's attorney
Yeah,
Yeah,
for input.
That would be smart, because
Would that be
I don't think
covered
we
by
have to pay
our,
them.
our membership fees?
Actually, it might be.
Yeah,
We have a
That's a good point.
membership.
Yep.
Yeah.
But again, you might be so far ahead of the game that they don't have an opinion yet, so, but we can ask. We can certainly submit that. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, the vote is to approve policy P3171.1, non-lapsing reserve account for educational or capital expenditures as a first reading. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So that passes.
Yeah. Ooh, good job.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This policy committee's been working on policy.
Yeah,
That's all
well, look,
got to
I mean,
say.
this is most of the meeting besides finance. So.
I know.
So next, we have information proposals, letters, communications, comments by board members on meeting items, any other items in their jurisdiction. Mike, would you like to start?
Actually, for, I guess, communications, many of us were at the Fitch graduation actually was at the 8th grade promotion ceremony too, and they're both wonderful ceremonies celebrating our 8th graders moving up to high school and our high school students moving off into the world. So it's wonderful to see. The other one, I think we all got the email from a concerned parent talking about her student with autism spectrum disorder and issues concerning, I think it was with summer school or summer supports.
I forwarded that to Denise to make contact with that mom to review.
Okay.
So I did get a copy of it. I was CC'd, I think.
Okay.
Thank you. Jen?
2 items regarding graduation, operational, one's operational. So the second
Jen.
row of.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize. 2 items relating graduation. The second row of the center section, there was an entire family sitting on the row. They were all, and another set of people, they were all asked to move after they'd been sitting there for a while. And it was the valedictorian's family, because handicaps, people with disabilities came in and they had family members. So they made a family that got there early, sat down, made them move. So we, as like an administration, need to designate that in advance so that people aren't disrupted. So that was one feedback. And then another feedback I got was from an individual of Native American descent, and not the student. He doesn't know who it was, but basically said, oh, your skin color is too dark, and so can you turn your wrist around so that I could give you the stamp? So I just wanted...
Who said that?
I don't know. When they were checking in and stamping you, they said, oh, we can't stamp this side because you're too dark. Turn over. So I wanted to bring that up because that was somebody who mentioned that to me. And it wasn't a student. They said to me, they don't know who it is. They know it wasn't the blonde person. So I don't know who was working. So I just want to make sure that part of DE&I training for next year as our staff comes back, that we are sensitive to that. But, thanks.
Andre, nothing? Adrian?
Oh, yeah. Also, I attended the graduation with most everyone else here. I was pleasantly surprised with how many kids had honor cords and were National Honor Society, and how much work above and beyond our kids do. So I want to thank all of the teachers and staff and paras and tutors that supported those kids making it through the finish line in our district, and now a lot of them are onto new things. So I do appreciate all of the work that everyone has done here to put that very special moment on. I also heard about the seating in the front row. So maybe, I know we're doing some work with seating as far as this project this summer, so maybe we can, and there's been some issues with the handicap seating, so, that would be great to deal with all that at once. And then I've also had lots of communication with different community members about rain dates.
Yes, we've already
so
talked about
we'll-
that. Have to get a rain date next year. I've already said that to Matt. He said it to me.
Yeah. And yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
So I'm still in shock here. I just want to take a moment out of my time for communication to say that I apologize to this person on behalf of the district, and that was unacceptable, and we need to do better. We say we have DEI, we say we're equitable, we say we honor diversity. This just has no place in this district, in this town. And I thank you for bringing it forward, but it's very painful. And, in whatever capacity I can say it, I apologize for that. And we need to figure out how we can do better.
And I will bring it to the attention at the high school, too.
Dean?
I've received emails from parents, not through my district email, but my private email addresses, concerning my comments, their emails in support, my comments with respect to the proposed reading program and what I feel is a insertion of a political agenda into the reading program. It's concerning to me that they feel that they have to do that on the side and not in the open. But that is the environment that we are in. Just wanted to pass that along.
Ian?
I wanted to attend the 8th grade graduation. However, there was also a track and field banquet that night, and my son was, part of track and field, so I was there instead.
Your dance card is very full.
Yeah. I also, and then Tuesday, of course, the 11th was the policy committee meeting. And I received the email as well that Mr. Whitney identified from the parent having some trouble with the extended school year situation. So I'm glad to hear that it's been referred to Ms. Doolittle. And I would hope that we get some sort of report on what the situation is and, make sure that the needs are being addressed in the most positive way possible. I received another couple emails regarding the budget request from the meeting, the town council meeting, and one of those did end up resulting in a phone call, and I just wanted to reiterate that it is a shortfall attached to the 2023 to 24 school year budget, not the 24-25 one that we just passed. Right. The breakdown, is associated with a number of factors that, some of which were anticipated and some of which were not. So I would encourage all concerned citizens to watch the meetings closely and take notes because there's a lot of moving pieces. And the documents are all in the agenda packages or projected on screen. So, and anyone that has any further questions or concerns to please, reach out and just email us directly, call us. I know all my information is posted online. I'm more than happy to engage and try to help explain the details. And I do share the concerns, voiced by many, as far as like trying to make sure that we pass policies and establish procedures that prevent anything like this happening in the future. And let's see, of course, the graduation, sorry to hear, I concur, sorry to hear of the people being disrupted, and also of, the callous statement. And I did also receive an email from a professional staff member that was concerned about the, just wanted to note that the, we gave a lot of awards and spoke very highly of the paras and the tutors, but a great number of those who have been, that we honored. That's right. I attended the meeting we had the other week, the June 10th thing, and they aren't coming back necessarily. Like, these are, and if they are coming back, then a number of their colleagues are not coming back. So we need to keep that in mind. And as we move forward into the budget year, we need to keep it, try to find ways to make sure that we can bring back the support staff that we need. And that reminds me of the referral I wanted to also make a note of. I think we need to seriously consider how we deal with grant funding versus personnel hiring. So I'll type up an email to make it an official referral, but I think we need to, be very stringent on how we hire people in. I'd like to see how we look at that and basically like get out of the habit of paying for staff with grants. If they're staff, they're essential, they should be part of the operating budget. Grants should be for things that, maybe if we don't get the grant, we can do without for a year. Something like that. I'll take some time with it and type it up in a more clear fashion, but this email kind of reminded me of that. We had that conversation back during the budget deliberation process, and I definitely want to, so I thank the person for sending this email and reminding me of that fact.
I did ask Joyce to capture your referral. I think there was also a belief that the board should be approving the overall budgets of some of these grants, in addition to whether they're used for personnel or not.
Yes.
I think we can expand into that.
Yeah.
With regard to suggested agenda items, I have the unfortunate task of reminding us that we do not have funding for nurses. Funding that had been paid by the town for many years, and then due to circumstances, we do not. And so I am going to have to request that the superintendent come up with proposals for how we're going to pay for the nurses. First of all, determine exactly what it's going to cost now that we are not covering the summer school. And so we need to know what it's going to cost and
What do you
what
mean we're not
proposals are.
Covering summer school.
My understanding is that VNA has decided to
Right.
pay for the nurses during,
Well, that's their contracted
and
year,
August,
so
yeah.
that goes all the way through.
and so if we can come up with the actual number that we'll be responsible for and how we can do it with the approved budget. Because we are going to have to make some decisions about how that is funded.
You do have an update that I just passed out, and I'll attach it, but the number for excess revenue for the year is up to $1.7 million now.
I just think we need to be prepared in the event that the town council does not entertain funding the nurses, that we know how we're going to adjust our budget for that. I mean,
It's a lot more people.
it's not,
1.3 million.
listen, it brings me no pleasure, but we can't just not acknowledge that it's a problem that currently exists.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. I agree. I would also like to, a potential agenda item is was attending the town meeting last week, there was something like 400 new apartments that are going to be coming online in under 2 years. And the 300 apartments are coming online starting this fall or winter. So that's 700 units. So I would, and presumably, some of those people, there's a lot of two-bedroom units, and some of those are going to be families. So that could be a lot of children. So I would propose an agenda item to, I'm not really sure how we do this, but coordinate with the town for the projects in place right now. And then I heard something like we were short 6,000 units. There was talk about 6,400 that the town had need for 6,400 housing units or something like that in that meeting. So if the town has future plans, we should plan this and not be caught off guard with both the expenses that come with all new students and if we can house these kids. Not house them.
Educate them.
Educate them.
Accommodate.
Accommodate.
Yeah.
Mike?
So I was wondering, I think maybe the town council is going to take up education funding again next week, maybe on the 25th. Is there any thought to having a joint meeting as we do sometimes in the budget season to either have a committee of the whole meeting or convene, for the Board of Ed at the same time so that members have standing to speak and have us on an equal footing for that?
I like that.
I would be in favor of that.
It'd have to be a special meeting regardless, obviously, but.
The agenda is out, so you know, it's for the 25th already. So you have to, that's all I'll say. It is out. And it is on education.
Has there been any communication from the council as far as like what the 25th is going to look like to the chair?
I have not heard other than we are on the agenda. So obviously, there are lists of questions that have been added to multiple times that staff is working on to research the answers to.
While trying to close the budget
While trying to close the budget.
and not have overtime.
All right. With that,
Motion to adjourn.
do I have a
What
second?
time is it? 9:20. Got to write
Seconded
this
by
down.
Dean. Hey, without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recorder?